Myers Beach Cultural and Environmental Learning Center Advisory Board, known as CELCAB, and it is Tuesday, March 27th, and it's at 1 p.m. exactly, and I would like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I'm putting my phone on airplane mode so I don't get any
Good
interruptions.
afternoon, yes.
Oh, and we have Jim. That's good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'll begin with the roll call, and I want to mention that Carrie Henderson is not here, but her absence is excused. And we have Becky rolling in at the last minute, so it's great to see you here.
I have to make a quick stop first.
Oh.
It's a long way over here. And I'm old.
And thank you for coming.
And the traffic can be unpredictable.
Becky, can I just call you for roll call?
Absolutely.
All right, Becky's here. All right. Then we can start
Don't say
with.
where, just
We'll start with our vice mayor.
Jim Adderhold is here.
Thank you, Jen.
Carolyn McCowan is here.
Ellen Vaughn is here.
Barbara Hill.
Sherry Smith.
Betty Simpson.
Adam Knight.
Jeff Hauge.
Karina Brites.
And Karina, good to see you here. All right, we have the approval of the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from last month, which was Thursday, February 27th?
I'd move the approval of the minutes from February 27th.
Well, I have one question. I had asked for clarification because Adam had indicated that the Friends were paying $2,000 a year for the kiosk domain. And I question that since we had not been paying that for many years. So I was wondering if you were able to trace that down, Adam?
Yes, it was, well, I should say no. In terms of answering your question regarding like when the Friends started and stopped paying, that answer I don't have.
Okay.
I still am going through it. But basically the short answer is it has been the last few years, like
Okay.
2 years at least.
Well, I suspect that it's a lot longer than that because I
Probably.
checked in with our treasurer and she has no recollection of that, ever paying that. And I was not able to talk to Jim Steele about it, but I never remember it coming up as a line item
Yeah,
in the
the-
years that I've been involved, and that goes back to 2015.
The only thing I can think of, it may have been lumped into the website through the Friends BCE grant money. That's the only thing I can think of.
Okay.
That maybe the Friends were
marketing.
paying it through the marketing grant.
Yeah, well, that would make sense, because that's basically non-print, and that would be covered under the grant, so
Yeah,
it was
that makes
probably included
Okay.
in the grant. So while it's not lining up as a line item on your books, it is part of the grant that you all got.
Okay.
So,
Well, and I certainly hope it's for more than a domain, because a domain name should cost $20, not $2,000.
right.
That's really
Oh,
why I
that-
keep coming back to this.
Yeah.
It was also for the server,
Okay, well, that makes, all right,
to host the
To
two
ho-
websites.
Kind of like the provider.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
So it's like our Xfinity bill.
right, and, yeah, and,
But I will keep looking into it.
yes, please do, because it seems, yeah, or at least get it relabeled so that it's for web services.
Yes.
Calling it web services, and then I'll stop.
No clarification is always a good thing. Thank you for pointing that out.
Welcome.
So do you believe that there's any amendments that need to be made to the minutes, or do they read as accurate?
Well, I would amend, that rather than calling it kiosk domain, that it be labeled as web services.
Domain and web services.
Well, domain is
So-
part of a web service. I mean, web services is the generic terminology, so if it's web
On the
services,
staff report?
And where?
The
where
meeting
is it?
minutes,
meeting minutes.
last month's meeting minutes.
It's under
Yeah.
approval of the minutes. That's from November's meeting.
Right, so I'll just say, if the Friends were paying $2,000 a year for domain services, web domain services. Web,
Still
yeah.
don't see it.
Web services, not domain, I mean, whatever. Web services, let's
No
get
longer
generic.
paying for the,
Okay.
gotta have that marked.
Okay, so yeah, minutes from the November 21st meeting has been amended. Do we have an approval on that amendment? And we're gonna have to rescind the previous approval of the minutes and go back to base one simply because we didn't really have a discussion. So, going back to approving the amendments of this, change, this, web domain services, I'd like a motion to approve that amendment.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Becky.
I'll second.
Second, okay, thank you. All right, all approve?
Aye.
Yes. Against? No, none, thank you. All right, so that is approved, and then with that amendment, the motion to approve the minutes for the February 27th meeting, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion
Oh.
to accept.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting minutes approved. All right, so it's Carolyn that did the approval of the minutes. Getting off to a very confusing start. All right, public comment, we have no one in the audience, so we'll just move forward to the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The staff report, which is included in your meeting packet, is the single-page document with the numbers on one side and things to note on the back. You can see attendance remains pretty steady, especially our programming. Our programming really took off this month. These numbers, by the way, are as of March 25th, when the numbers were captured. We've been doing a lot of outreach, like the cattle drive, the shrimp festival. You might notice I did, based on the recommendations and advice from the board, I did change the merchandise as a merchandise revenue, so you can see
Good.
that
For
clearer.
clarification,
More
thank
clarification. Rentals, social media remains, our marketing campaigns are going really strong. These are the impressions on the back page, page 2, of the staff report. You can see 2 marketing campaigns through Expedient Travelers attended, finished for winter. Spring is ongoing with an additional spring campaign through TripAdvisor marketing, and we have ongoing campaigns through Discovery Maps and Leadtrail. Some things of note: staff training. The museum registrar, Brianna Vaccaro, spoke at a career panel for the University of West Georgia. We're bringing Mount House into fire code compliance with new exit signs, extinguishers, etc. The museum registrar attended an archaeological boot camp training at Jupiter Inlet Lighthouse through the Florida Public Archaeology Network, getting her more familiar with Florida archaeology since she's coming from Georgia. I gave an interview to WUCF for a statewide PBS airing of the Florida Road Trip series. There'll be an episode on Fort Myers. So it'll be the Edison Estates, the Southwest Florida Historical Society, and Mound House that will showcase the local history and things to do in Fort Myers.
Is that
on
the
a-
one that's Thursday at 8 on FGCU?
I don't have an airing time, or if that,
I mean,
I'm not
that's
sure.
the road trip. I don't know what day it would be, but
It is
it's,
Florida Road Trip.
it's an interesting program.
Yes, so it should air sometime in the fall. So that, be on the lookout for that. And we're collecting quotes for the landscape restoration to basically replace the damage from Hurricane Milton, especially in that lower section by the observation pier. Staff have fixed the existing irrigation system, so hopefully that will help with getting the salt off any future coastal flooding events. We have 3 new volunteers that are year-round residents that are doing kayaking and being museum docents, so that's a welcome addition. We have a volunteer appreciation day on April 26th. If you're a volunteer, stay tuned for more information on details. And then staff attended a service learning workshop through Florida Gulf Coast University. And I'm happy to add any details or answer any questions.
Could you expand on the Volunteer Appreciation Day?
Yes, so
What does that entail?
So that will entail a bit of a social as well as an educational program to give some updates, but also just a chance for all the volunteers to come together at Mound House and thank them for their appreciation. April being volunteer month. So just want to thank them, reconnect with volunteers before most of them head back up north, and get acquainted with the new volunteers especially.
Okay, and how many volunteers do we have, like including the kayak tours and in general?
I don't have that number on me, but I can get it to you for next meeting.
Okay. Any questions for Adam? The figures really look good. I'm pleased that we are growing our membership, although I would like to see a few more than we currently have, but it's a start.
Do you have many field trips still scheduled for this year?
Yes, we didn't have any this month, but I think we have 2 or 3 next month.
Excellent.
Yes,
And what grade levels do they tend to be?
elementary. So
Okay.
usually that 4th grade core history requirement. But staff are also working on expanding the field trip offerings to include both middle and high school aging to have really new field trip program lesson plans that are scalable for elementary, even a couple that can be scaled to pre-K.
Oh.
Especially because there's such a huge demand for homeschoolers
Mhm.
and they bring such a wide variety of ages.
They do.
So that's going to be hopefully done by fall.
Okay. And the FGCU program is not in practice anymore?
It is in practice. There just were not any scheduled colloquium tours in the month of March.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think there's 1 or 2 in April, and then they continue year round.
Okay.
They're just none in March.
Is it, do I recall that the colloquium is no longer a graduation requirement?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure. But in my conversation with staff, I know there was discussion about ending that as a graduation requirement
Uh-huh.
and making it an optional graduation requirement. I think you can take additional courses or alternative courses or material to meet that requirement, but I can't speak for
Gotcha.
Florida Gulf Coast
Okay.
University.
Because I just wondered if that would, you would experience a significant change in participation if it wasn't
I would
required.
imagine if it's no longer a requirement, there would definitely be a drop-off.
Any other questions for Adam with regard to the staff report? No? Thank you, Adam.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on the agenda is the underground exhibit. You can give us a status on what's happening.
Unfortunately, I wish I had more updates to share. Basically, it's very similar to last month's update. A lot of meetings, conversations, research, and waiting back in collaboration with civil engineers, the town's legal team, industrial hygienists. We're still waiting on a time for scheduling. Working through our insurance company, so looking all those ways to reopen it, at what scale, what level, any possible solutions whatsoever, because it's such a large, complicated issue. Unfortunately, don't have a clear answer on any of those. We're still waiting on feedback from those outside experts.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
Chad Schutz, our environmental person here, had a group of engineers that were on the island for something else, so he called Adam and said, I got this group of, how many, 15,
It was
20?
27, 30 engineers.
Engineers that came down to look at
Yeah.
it, so we're waiting on some of their expert opinions too, they were gonna put them in writing
Yeah.
and
Oh,
come
they
back.
are
So
gonna give you an actual written report. What
Yeah.
kind of engineers were they?
They're a mix of various specialties, but mostly civil engineers, in addition to the structural engineers that
So
we've had.
what was their response at viewing it?
It was a mixture of responses. Most of the responses were, well, one, that it was there, that it was built in the first place. Just because it's such a unusual structure, they weren't expecting it on a tour of, beach stability to see an archaeological site. So they're kind of taken aback by that, and they're kind of interested that it was built below, the grade was at sea level in 2009. So it was definitely a structure they were not accustomed to seeing, especially basically a structure with entry at grade into an archaeological site.
Yeah.
So it was mostly shock and a little confusion onto what exactly they were looking at. But the good news is, another thing, in addition to the engineers, we also I've been successful in reaching out to is it Ike Park, the architectural firm that did the designs for both phase 1 and phase 2, and they're sending over their recommendations as well.
Did you have any contact, remember the gentleman that was here, Charlie Streeter?
Mhm.
And he said that he had a lot of contacts. and people that would be willing to work with us as far as prices go. I was just wondering if you've gotten in contact with him?
No, we haven't, because we're still waiting on a lot of the real health and safety elements and the engineering before we discuss and move forward with pricing. We don't want to disqualify anyone by discussing pricing or through a bidding process or request for proposal process. So I don't want to be too premature, and then in the future months, a year for now, there's a roadblock.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical on our projects, because if you consult with somebody about it, they can't bid on the project.
Oh,
So,
But he wouldn't be in a position of bidding for
No,
the
he
contract,
just
he's
had-
just,
doesn't make sense.
yeah.
yeah, we can do a
just
consulting, but
has
if
it
he has
consulting.
contacts, I would hate to jeopardize what he has if we don't have a scope yet.
So I reached out to him when I came back from my travels and had a lovely conversation with him, and he's interested in helping us as best he can.
Okay.
He suggested that we look widely and broadly. He said that what we have is such a unique
Right.
element to the property that it may be of interest to international firms. And he went so far as to say they might be willing to do the work pro bono because it would be an interesting thing to have in their portfolio.
Interesting. Oh.
So I told him that we would be discussing things
Yeah.
and that I'd stay in touch with him.
Yeah.
And he's very interested in being involved with us.
And that's Slater.
Yeah, I have his contact
Yeah,
information.
you have all the info.
Okay.
And so I can share that, because I'm not sure that we have his name spelled properly in the minutes, but I'll double check with my contact. But in any event, then I had this epiphany that I've been dying to share with my fellow people that care about the Mound House. And after Teresa Schober gave us such an impassioned presentation last month, I wondered if we could bring her on as a consultant for this project.
What would that entail cost-wise?
I don't know. She sort of says this is her $1 million baby. She might be willing to help us pro bono.
Well, and actually, she mentioned that. She
Yeah.
did say, I'm available if you need my
Right.
help.
And I think we should,
I
given
think we need
all
to-
the detail that she provided about all the extraordinary things they went to engineer that properly, so that those that were involved wouldn't be shocked by what it is, but be yeah. And it is, and the fact that she shared with us that it was designed to be, I'm gonna use the term raked, periodically, and nothing had been done to the faces of it for 14 years, undermines the way it was supposed to be maintained.
Yeah, and I was a little shocked that we didn't have a maintenance plan on that anyway, so I'm wondering why that didn't come with
Yeah.
You know, a
that-
lot of
that-
records were lost after Teresa left.
okay.
Well, I think it
But
would
I think-
be poor judgment not to involve her, because she seemed to know all the ins and outs and
Mhm.
wherever you peg and pin and,
Right.
you know, the whole layout. I was really impressed with her detail.
Right.
So what would be the protocol for asking her involvement?
And actually, what is her time frame too? Because doesn't she go up to
Yeah.
British Columbia?
Tallahassee. Oh, I don't know, she's in Tallahassee now, she said.
Oh, in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
But she still has her house here up in Iona,
Mhm.
Right.
so.
I
So
don't
it
know. if-
basically it'd be a recommendation to staff or council to look into that.
That'd be great, someone that's familiar, just like we have Bill Grace for, but
Yeah.
she would.
Historical
Yeah,
advisor.
I mean, and she would be there for engineers to come in and that are shocked to see what they see, because it is unusual that she could explain what we have here. I mean, we have a cultural gem there, and, you know, like Charlie said, you know, we can almost make it worldwide, statewide. People still talk about it. Is it open? Is it open?
Yeah.
Is it open?
That's what they remember.
So,
Mhm.
That's what they remember.
Right.
oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
So
How
I
would we
think
go
we
about
need to
that?
really
We-
explore.
We, from a procedural standpoint, if she is offering to do this work pro bono, that would be something that would be up to staff. The town council wouldn't have to approve that. So if you want to work up some kind of an arrangement with her. I had a question for Adam. I missed maybe just a bit. You mentioned that the firm that did phase 1 and phase 2 is going to be consulted and provide the recommendations. Have they come out and actually viewed the underground exhibit since the,
Not since Milton, but they did visit after Ian.
okay. Would they be making the recommendation after they've come out and seen it after Milton, or are they gonna just do it with based on what they know now?
Based on what they know in terms of the structure, they're not commenting about the archaeological thing. They made that very clear. They're not archaeologists, because the underground exhibit isn't the archaeology. The underground exhibit is the concrete that was made in 2009 as a modern structure. So that they're qualified to speak on in terms of its strength as a structure. and its limitations and
So
challenges.
so nothing's changed as a result of Milton that would help them assess the situation?
Uh,
In terms of physically coming out and seeing it?
I'll check in with them again.
Yeah.
But they seemed pretty confident they would be able to comment on and submit a written report on the challenges and opportunities
Yeah,
associated
no, I
with
think
it.
it's a great idea. I just wondered if they need to see it again after
I'll
Milton.
contact them again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do we need to pursue Dr. Victor Thompson in any way?
I did speak with
Mhm.
Dr. Thompson
Uh-huh.
a while back, and he seemed very interested in the project clearly, and was very pleased after our last meeting with regard to the support
Mhm.
for looking into every possible means by which this can be repaired and reopened. So I do think that there are a lot of people that are advocating for the reopening. But what I'm hearing you say is that you actually, since our last meeting, there's nothing been concretely determined from any of the resources that we had, that, in other words, you haven't been reaching out where we were able to get a report of any kind. It's just all still preliminary is what I'm hearing.
A mixture of preliminary and still waiting on those reports, so I have nothing tangible to submit to the advisory board or to Jeff even.
Okay, and with regard to the legal services that you were, the legal issues you were referring to, could you elaborate?
Yeah, in regards to both state statutes when it comes to 872, the law dealing with human remains, the Historic Preservation Act of 1966, which is Section 106, NAGPRA, and other culturally specific laws, both on the federal, state level, and then also reviewing the town codes as it relates to archaeology.
Town codes?
Yes, there's
Our
various.
town codes?
Yep, the town of Fort Myers Beach under Section 22. I think it's Section 22. Yeah. Under that code is there's a couple law ordinances that relate to archaeological sites.
So that actually was drawn up and approved after the underground exhibit
Evidently.
was, because, right, that was when we incorporated, so those rules, those ordinances came into effect while we're dealing with the archaeological site. So it could have been, it seems to me that would be complementary, not in any way a
Yeah,
deterrent.
yeah, we
There are certain procedures that the legal team's still looking into, and like the right, because some of the laws, especially the state laws, are very, very, very specific. You can't deviate. Once a law is triggered, the town has obligations to follow the law throughout. And there's changing jurisdictions involved, and yes, there's a lot of things involved.
Yeah,
So
I'm just making sure as a town that we're following the right thing of the law, so.
Okay,
Mhm.
so.
Make sure we do it right.
Just check all the boxes and then we go move forward.
Yeah,
Mhm.
our attorneys, our town attorneys have it in their hands, so.
Okay, so then their findings will be presented to us next month?
I hope.
Whenever they get to it, I mean, they got a lot on their plate too, so.
I
mean,
just don't
hopefully-
want to drag this out.
Yeah.
so-
I don't either, but we have other stuff going on in the town.
Right, so maybe, Adam, could you kind of give me us a sense of your action plan going forward for the next month?
In regards to the underground,
Yeah.
if there's an update, I'll provide it. But I don't foresee an opening next month or the next couple months for the underground exhibit,
What do you mean, the opening?
Yeah.
like a reopening of
Oh,
the
no,
space.
no, we're not
No,
talking
no,
about
we're
that.
not.
Really?
Yeah.
We're,
We just
at
wanna
the
know
last month,
steps.
we were looking to you to provide the, basis by which we can better determine the steps forward, i.e., what is the feasibility, what are the legal issues, what is the, if you've got the mitigation issue, is that the first step, when is that gonna happen? And the budget for making all of this go forward. We'd like to be able to get that next month, that should be.
As would I.
Yes.
I just think, I mean, Barbara, you know what's going on with other town properties,
Oh,
especially
right,
like the
of course.
pool. I mean, it's been
They owe-
2.5 years and we're barely getting to that whole
But
process.
that's an issue of funding, and we're not quarreling
And this
about the
is,
funding
this
right
is a
now.
lot, this has other issues in funding though. This has legality, things that we're trying to clarify to make sure we're good, and that's what we wanna do. We just wanna cover our bases, but to like put a timeline on it, I just don't know if it's fair, cause things just take time.
Well, what do you
You know-
perceive to be some of the legal issues?
He mentioned those earlier,
Code.
Yeah, mostly in regards to
Different share.
following proper procedures, because again, if you deviate from anything whatsoever, it could send us the project back even farther, both in
Yeah,
terms
yeah,
of
yeah.
cost and time and delays. So I wanna have a clear roadmap and a strategic plan moving
So
forward.
you're talking about procedural things and not,
Procedural, but also there is noted risk, especially regards to human remains, regardless of race, gender, everything.
yes,
The presence of human remains does
Really
complicate
aware.
the situation greatly, especially in the eyes of the state. 872 is a very procedural. Once it's triggered, there's no stopping it.
I think this is another reason why we should bring Teresa in as an advisor, because she went through this
She
thing.
knew what, yeah.
Yeah,
And just a comment, I know that there's a lot of other things that need to be addressed, you know, the rec center and stuff, but I really feel that anything cultural on this island, and that's about the only thing that we really have outside of the library now, it just gets bottom, you know, we don't get the attention that the others do. And, I mean, cultural is one of the few things in the area that draws people. We have something cultural on Fort Myers
And we
Beach.
still have, I mean, we are working on that. We still have the Mound House.
I
I mean, that is, our attendance is up. I mean,
Yeah, and,
we are working on it.
Yeah.
Trust me,
and after.
I don't wanna see it close. My dad and I were even talking about it last weekend. He's seen it. He's like, it's not gonna close, is it? I'm like, we're trying to make it not close. Or not to have it close, not to make
Right,
it close, but
right.
trying not to have it close.
Yeah,
We just wanna make sure it's
right.
ethically, financially, I mean, when we go back, I'm just gonna be honest, we probably won't have TVs down there, we probably won't have a laser
It's
show.
okay.
that's fine,
Uh,
that's
We
fine.
all understand
So,
that.
I mean,
we
those are
don't-
just realities. The
Yeah,
structure wise,
But that's
we're
all
really
we-
working
yeah,
on it.
that's all we want. We don't
So-
need all the bells
I
and
mean,
whistles.
yeah,
Exactly.
just think about how long it took to build. The first permit for the demolition of the swimming pool was filed in, or completed in 2005, and it didn't open until 2010.
Right.
Well,
So
there
that
was a
was
lot
the
of
building.
archaeological work that went on in the meantime, and these
Yeah.
people were part of that effort, so it
And-
wasn't as if it was,
And
the
there,
swimming pool was taken out and it was immediately put in, there was,
Right.
and
Mhm.
as we know, archaeological work is long and slow.
and it's likely there will have to be, in terms of a mitigation, a path forward might involve, just like Teresa's pointed out, in terms of modifying the structure, there might have to be additional archaeological work, which, as you just pointed out, delays a lot of things, both in terms of procedure, science, and the law.
Anytime you dig a hole on that property, you have to
Yeah.
sift it
And that's what a
Right.
couple of the engineers were suggesting, is building another structure on top to house everything else. So it's like, no,
Or-
we can't really do that.
Yeah.
No, see, and that's, yeah,
They don't-
obviously,
they don't
well, they're
understand.
engineers, they're not
Yeah.
qualified to put
Yeah.
in their 2
Right, we
cents,
need
so
archaeology.
I would
I mean, they
just
can give
count
us their
their,
2 cents about
What's there?
what's there and how to
Yeah.
mitigate
Yeah.
loss, for sure. But
Again,
we are,
but-
rest
Yeah.
assured, I mean, we are working on it.
Okay.
Both Adam and I meet weekly and talk about it. It just,
how
I
do
know,
you see that
it
we
just-
can help you?
I guess continue advocating in your role as the advisor board to town council, just like Sherry pointed out, to continue promoting and amongst the community cultural heritage on the island. I guess that.
and
I'm not
two,
sure.
I mean, thanks to our vice mayor who supported our vote in November. He went to council and I gave that report and he was able to verbally get all the council members to verbally affirm their support for reopening the underground exhibit once, all of the studies have been done. And we recognize it's not gonna
Sure,
happen tomorrow,
overnight.
but we'd just like to see some progress and if,
I
a
would
written
too.
status report.
Yeah.
That, and not only that, but perhaps if you all don't object, I would like to see that, Teresa's consulted.
Okay.
And if she can help you provide any input that might be of value, that would make the progress go a little bit more efficiently, I think we'd all be for that.
was she, just talking to her, was she willing to do a pro bono?
Well, she
She
said,
did
I'm
say,
happy
"I'm
to help
happy to
you in
help
any
in
way
any
I
way."
can.
So we'll
That to me
see.
sounded like a pro bono.
Yeah.
I would certainly ask if she would be, in a position to do that.
Well, even if we had to pay her in some way, I think it would be very valuable to the whole project.
Exactly. The Friends have them.
Yeah.
And the Friends maybe could be in a position of supporting that,
Mhm.
if
You
that
bet.
was a requirement
bet.
on her part. Let's go the pro bono route first.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Let's do
like
that
that.
first.
And let's save your
Yeah.
money for something else,
Yeah,
right?
for-
But yes, let's
Yeah.
go, if
Could
that
be
is
travel.
if that is agreeable to you. I know that's a little sticky wicket, because normally when you have a director, you don't go back to get the input by the original director in any cultural institution, not just this one. But I think because she was the one that developed it and really has and a lot of those records, I think, were lost with the subsequent directors that came on board, that really it would be invaluable, and I think help the cause, as it were.
Well, also, she wrote so many grants
She
initially,
is another thing. We
and
need
brought in a
grants.
ton of money.
She
Right.
did.
And since we need money, hello?
Well, and that would be grant writing, which I don't think she's in a position to do.
No, but
so-
we could find that if we just had the source for the grants.
Well, a lot of those grants are drying up, but certainly we're looking, we know
Drying up
where,
and possibly
Yeah,
pull
and-
back.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
IMLS, for example, that's just, that entire program's just been scrapped.
I mean, we applied for the state grant and they
Needed it.
cut, what, how much out of their budget?
Yeah,
And all the arts.
But no,
stuff.
you're right, Carolyn, we can definitely pursue grants.
okay.
Madam Chair, just could I ask the committee, if our town attorney is currently doing a legal analysis, we have two fine town attorneys, but they are busy, and they're also very learned and very accomplished in their fields. I guess my question would be, because they don't have the institutional knowledge that this committee has, if they were to query someone on some of the history as they research these legal issues, would Teresa be the person that would be best suited for them to reach out to?
She would.
Could we,
That's a great idea.
could we have our town attorney reach out to Teresa as part of her due diligence? Just to,
You can ask.
that would be great,
That's a
yeah.
good idea.
Great idea.
it would be great.
Yeah, and a lot of it isn't too much interpretive, honestly,
It's a the history might
Yeah.
help, though, prepare
might.
their defense and/or
but yeah,
response, yeah.
we can,
And I
We'll
also
talk
think
offline.
Susan Grace could be a source. You know, her husband was an attorney. They are the ones who developed a lot of the stuff, but they were in on it with Teresa and the development and the,
Yeah, I just worry our town attorneys who are extremely competent, but I think they don't have that institutional or historical
Sure,
background. It could be
breadth.
helpful,
Actually,
so.
yeah,
it's
part
the
of-
same with,
it's not, Becky and Nancy that are doing it, they have another associate that does more works in historical,
Yep.
it's Chloe.
Oh, good.
So she's been taking this on.
That's
Oh,
great,
fantastic.
but the
I know,
same,
I get it,
yeah,
yeah, well,
same holds
yep.
true for Chloe, but your point well taken. It doesn't, they have a firm that does a variety of things for the town. They just, Becky and Nancy happen to be the lead, but I just,
Yeah, Chloe's taking this one on. so-
I'd love to have Chloe talk to somebody with that history, just to get some
And,
balance.
and knowledge of how it was
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
together.
Right.
right,
Yeah, so I think those two sources, both Teresa and Susan Grace.
right, definitely.
But in addition to that, certainly, Teresa has this incredible institutional knowledge, but she's been gone for, 15 years?
Yeah.
And of course, there have been laws that have been passed, there have been marked changes in terms of how institutions are being recognized and how they're being supported, and what is of value that perhaps wasn't as much of value back when Teresa was director. So we have to take that into account about, the evolution of any cultural institution.
And I think
And
she would be a
looking-
great beginning to do just that.
Sure.
But she's not keeping up with, the archaeology as it relates to the Mound House
It's still,
from the last 20 years. I mean, since she's been gone, let's say.
Right.
It hasn't been 20
She
years.
could
It's
create
been
the starting
she said
point.
14.
She's a starting
Yeah.
point, yeah.
I also think that Susan might have an idea, because Bill would have handled any legal issues having
issues.
to do with
you-
some of those
Yeah,
issues
I
we're
think those
talking
are
about.
everything that we're trying to explore, so yeah, those are good.
Yeah,
Okay.
so she might have a real feel for what was going
Great.
on.
Perfect.
Okay, any other, yes?
Yeah, I'm just saying, we're advocating a lot for the underground, but we don't need what we had before.
Right.
We don't need the TVs, we don't need the neon lights, we don't need,
Yeah,
we
and that's
wanna
why I
keep
said,
it-
I'm just trying to be real about it,
Yeah.
probably won't be down there because.
we want to keep
We
it simple.
recognize
They think
that.
that's
Kinda
gonna be
natural.
800,000 just to replace that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Like,
and
just natural.
yeah, and we're not even to that stage of
Yeah.
exhibit development. We're still looking at the foundational issues.
Right, and once
The-
that's
the-
done-
Yeah, I
the
think it's
physical
a
structure.
step-by-step process.
Structure,
Yep.
exactly.
So-
And
I
this is,
think-
again, this is not off the table by any means, we're really fighting to keep it open. Where some of these town projects, we just kind of, after Ian, you know, and that, after they were destroyed the third or fourth time, so. We're really honestly trying to keep it open and we're just trying to do it.
I don't want your job. I
Yeah,
can't
It's kind
imagine
of fun.
Yeah. Keep it
keeping up with
easy.
everything.
So, I mean, I'm not saying that's on the back burner at all. It's just one of the things we're working towards,
Taking time.
you know.
It's one of the plates the town's spinning.
And I'll talk about Newton here in a second, so that's another.
Adam, a question about the gentleman that was to come from, New Smyrna Beach, and I believe it was some kind of
Yeah, we're still trying
mitigation
to schedule
expert.
him, so I don't know if that's gonna pan out. We may have to just
What,
end up paying for it
what was
instead of
it,
insurance.
okay, so was
in-
he gonna come down pro bono, or is
No,
that?
he's part of the insurance.
Oh, it's, okay, so,
So he's got all these other claims that he's going around,
Oh,
and we're just trying to,
so that's a
Wasn't
waiting
it?
game then with him, or is that off the table,
could be.
or
I mean,
what
he
is the
hasn't been
status?
very responsive, so.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue of concern, so the person in question is an industrial hygienist.
Yes, I know, yes.
So,
we will,
That
I mean, we can
terminology
still
to
pursue,
say I wanna be
he's,
one.
I wish we would have gone through this process when they were doing, I didn't know it was such a thing until they came down and did Bay Oaks. And that was
Oh.
that was recent, but, and then,
So-
yeah,
so-
and that's when we came in, and they came in and they said, no, this flooring should get taken out way earlier, there's mold, there's, you know, it wasn't at the levels where we needed to shut down, but after all these storms, that's what we're gonna do. We're not
So-
even gonna put down a gym floor.
Are we
anymore.
obligated to use this person through the arrangement?
Or we pay for another one, but we just need funds.
And how much is that going to cost?
I have no idea. We haven't looked into another one yet. We've been trying to get this guy down.
I haven't had good experiences with industrial Genesis.
I was
You know,
just,
this has to come out, this whole kitchen has to come out. No, they were wrong. Pulled the dishwasher as dry as a bone back there, no.
Yeah.
Well, I think
I
that's
know.
one thing if you're a private owner, but this is town of Fort Myers.
I understand that we have to
property.
do it, but by golly,
the
Yeah.
last
But they
thing I
probably
want is
err.
for.
I was
Yeah.
just thinking of the resources at Florida Gulf Coast and a lot of graduate students and experts, professors that oversee.
Yeah, I don't know if they have that program, but.
But
Well, they might
that's-
not, but, you know, it would be worth a.
And our number one goal here is, well, first and foremost, safety of the people that are gonna be going in there, so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, wouldn't mold be one major
Yeah,
the
environmental
mycologists
and safety
and
concern
microbiologists.
to
but
me?
it could shut the whole project down forever, that's my
Mhm.
concern.
Well, and you know, that's something we have to face,
Yeah, you
that's the
can't
reality. I
expose
mean, to
people
me,
to
because
mold.
we have all been through it, the first thing that anybody talks about is get that mold out of that building.
Yes.
Everybody says that first, right off the bat,
And
before
as
you
a
take
town,
any
we have to
drywall
have
up.
documented, like Bay
You
Oaks,
do.
we had to have it
You do.
documented that it's safe, because we're a government entity, we're a public entity,
Yeah.
so. That's just one of the many things we're looking at, it's not,
But is it too late to go in as a mitigating, activity to just at least keep it from getting worse now? I mean, to the
It-
point.
Just sitting.
we can,
So again, the issue is the environment has changed since its initial construction. So it didn't just flood during Milton, or it also flooded Helene, Nicole, Idalia, Ian, and also, I mean, some of you were down there
I think it was
before
5
Ian,
times total.
but also full moons.
Full
I mean, how many
moons.
times would you go out there with a
King
group
tides,
and
yeah.
there's a giant puddle of water, the whole basin is filled with water, and it's a dark room filled with water,
Mm-hmm, you bet.
on and off, submersion, empty, year after year.
So can mold ever get worse? I mean, what's the worst it can get?
I
mean,
don't
it's
know.
hard to bear.
I don't know.
And
I-
there's
allergic to
different
mold,
kinds,
so-
they're not all
I'm
bad.
allergic to penicillin and
I-
molds and blue cheese and all
I-
that, so
No,
I
are
don't wanna
you?
be down there if there's mold.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, there's mold
No.
everywhere, I mean,
That's right.
Yeah.
it is,
But the door, we did build that temporary wooden structure to have at least the doors open to ventilate it in some regards to start to mitigate any future growth or real explosions. But there still is that issue of, again, the continued flooding. So if you visit the mountain house, that's what there's that big wooden grate. Is
Wooden
that
door, yeah.
the doors are open to try airing it out a little
Yeah,
bit, and that's what we
hazmat
did after
suit and
Ian.
put it
Right.
aside, huh?
But again, I'm not a
That's the
industrial
ultimate
hygienist or a mold expert, so if that's effective, I'm sure it might, but to the levels of public safety, I'm just a simple
And
museum
maybe
manager.
that's another thing to consider, is to not have it closed in.
You know,
Yeah, and that everything's on the table.
Sherry, did you have a
yeah,
thought?
Becky had, you said, that I think it was Becky, that, that one of the ideas, if, you know, it gets to the point, the mold, the everything, would be to build like a big plexiglass type thing in the front where people could at least look in.
I thought of that too, you have a, like a doorway and a.
Mm-hmm.
A window.
These are all options that we can explore.
Yeah.
Osprey Point has where people walk through, everything else is behind glass.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another, that
Yeah.
maybe is
Yeah,
another
and-
option.
And theirs
there's
isn't
so
open,
much-
it's just open, and they have a giant skylight to help with ventilation.
Oh, great idea.
So they don't have it air conditioned, they just have it open, which also is good for the stability of the shell. So there's no like instability with the changing in humidity between the inside, outside, the door opening and changing. It's, you know, 97 outside, it's 72 inside. Yeah.
Right.
So it's more stable. So, but in regards to the, you know, the flooding, so there, it, again, like Jeff says, there's a lot of things that we're considering just for, again, health and safety. I would hate for someone to get sick, a staff member, a volunteer, or a visitor, from the poor air quality. That's the last thing you want.
I don't think it's as easy as spraying mold remover like at Bay Oaks.
Yeah. We need a lot of bleach.
Carolyn, do you have a thought? I've noticed.
Oh, I was just asking a question. Jim.
Oh, okay, because if you have something to add.
No, she was just
or a
asking, and
question.
maybe Jeff could respond. Carolyn was just asking, does the town already have a mitigation firm that they've worked with? I assume you have at Bay Oaks.
We either work with whoever the insurance company gets, or we have, there's a division of FEMA that's mitigation, that came down after Ian. But no, we don't have one currently on staff. They just like for, let's just say for Bay Oaks or the water towers, we've had them come down and just take a look, make sure the environment's safe.
Jeff, would a mitigation firm like that need an industrial hygienist to come in first to assess the situation?
I know for Bay Oaks, they did this
Did they?
time.
Okay.
Yeah, they, that was one of the check marks they had to have,
Okay,
but one of the, you know,
yeah.
check marks. It was just part of the process, but, yeah, I mean,
So how
I think
would
these
the-
are gonna
how
be
would it-
conversations
How
that,
would the process be different between Bay Oaks and the underground exhibit? Why would that not be treated the same?
depends how our insurance was set up at the buildings.
Ah.
So after Ian, we would have never been able to do what we do here, that's why it took so long to open the first time.
Okay,
But we were very underinsured, so we had boosted everything up, so it just depends, we'd have to look whether it was, you know, flood, wind, whatever insurance that would pay for it, so.
and we had insurance, we had flood insurance
Oh, for
for
sure,
the
yeah,
roundhouse
yeah.
in general.
Mhm.
And I believe FEMA paid the town X number of dollars for, you know, the repairs of the damage. What a
We-
part of that was to
Yeah.
the underground exhibit?
That I'd have to look, I don't.
There's got to have been some stipend for the damage to the underground exhibit from FEMA. that's flood related.
Those are always tricky ones, we can put a valuation to it, whether they're gonna pay it or not is the other thing.
So you don't know whether it's.
We won't know for another, I mean, right now, they've actually froze a lot of the FEMA funds currently, so
They were, I'm sorry?
they've frozen them
Oh, they,
currently, they're working on it, so. It just depends, I mean, we can't count on that money coming in 5 or 10 years, we sure hope so, we're very hopeful that the
so are you
money will
saying
come.
we didn't get any FEMA money for
We haven't
the
gotten any
Mound House?
FEMA money at all.
Okay, but insurance money.
Insurance money we would have gotten. I'll find out what figure that was, but I can't imagine it was a whole lot. I can't remember. Do you?
No.
See if I can pull it up.
I know, it was basically one pot. I know the Mound House and Underground are not separate line items,
I
which
remember-
complicates things since they're separate structures.
I remember Allison saying that the Mound House was the one property that the town owns.
That did have.
That was
Yeah.
properly
Yeah,
insured.
that we know, but in terms of an amount or how
We
exactly,
did spend quite a bit of money after Ian on that company that came down.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, but that was mostly the
but I
historic
can
preservation.
get you those figures, and I can either send them out or I won't have time now because I'm gonna cut my
Won't you-
extra
we'll-
report
we'll
short.
have that for next meeting then.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can kind of look through, I mean, I'd like to know, you know, from the insurance coverage that we did have after Milton, what, was allocated for the underground exhibit.
After
if any.
Milton, we wouldn't probably know that yet.
You wouldn't know that yet.
No, we're
From
not-
the insurance.
I don't think the adjusters have done all their work yet.
Oh, really?
No.
Wow,
What?
I mean, they've been down here to do site inspections, but I don't think we've gotten any figures back.
interesting,
Yeah.
wow, that's slow process, that's been months.
Nobody's really hooked up to pay
Yeah.
fast.
So, I mean, we're still working on insurance claims from, I believe, Irma, and FEMA claims from Irma,
Like
so.
when you all were doing the roof repair for the
Yeah.
roundhouse itself, was that money from Ian?
That was the end, yep.
Ian,
And we're
okay.
just getting to the gutters as well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
and that was 2 years ago.
2.5.
Okay,
So, anyway, I'll get you those figures next time.
Okay.
To see how much we got, but I think Adam's right, I think it's all part of one. But, I'll have to look, 'cause I don't think they would've done it, they would've done it as an exhibit, not the grounds. So those are two different categories, 2 out of the 5.
but the Mound House in general, that would be the site itself, would be,
The house, it probably went with the house,
right,
so we had the house, the shed, the office.
right, cause there's the
The
shed too,
grounds,
obviously,
yeah.
yeah. I'd love the breakdown of that, if you can provide that next
Sure.
month. Any other questions for Adam, with regard to the underground exhibit? I think, everybody brought out some really good, interesting points about our steps forward. Newton Beach Park?
Yeah, I'm gonna be brief and careful of everyone's time, I have some stuff going on this afternoon too, so.
Yeah, well,
It's, right now, what we got permitted for is the ground that's there, so hopefully you've driven by and taken a look.
Yes, looks good.
That's what's gonna go down there, the restroom trailer should be moved in tomorrow morning. As long as we, FP&L, being a nice friend and put in the meter can, we'll have it open,
Oh.
hopefully tomorrow. So,
and that's the parking lot and the restrooms, that's it.
the parking lot will be very rough right now, we ordered the curb stops, and they're not in yet, so yes, you'll be able to park there, we'll maybe put up some posts to kinda define it a little bit. Those will probably be in early next week, but, yeah, the access is open, I've been down there plenty of times in the past couple weeks. And
Jeff,
You
just,
mean beach access
Go ahead.
itself?
could you just comment, cause a lot of people drive by and wonder what's happening, there's still piles of sand there, and there's a big truck there. Just from a practical standpoint, I was just noticed it coming by.
Yeah.
But people ask me all the time, is it beach renourishment stuff?
Yeah, beach renourishment is supposed to wrap up May 31st
Okay,
of this year. However, John calling.
I
However,
get those same calls,
yeah.
yeah.
We are looking for another alternative place to put sand because they're bringing in to fill the scours that kind of washed away some of it on. I don't know if you've noticed the beach. It sometimes has like seems like a 3-foot drop off after we get some wave action or some storms. So they're trying to fill that in. So, but right now the beach renourishment has it kind of until they are complete, which is supposed to be May 31st. At that point, so that's what's going on. So where you see the green fence, that's all beach renourishment. They were, I don't know if you say nice enough, because they were supposed to have that whole lot. We worked together well to actually make the restroom trailer happen down there, and have a piece of that property. I know it sounds funny because it's ours, but it's also our only beachside access that we have for beach renourishment. So, so we have from the green fence on for now. That's going to be parking. We'll have about 8 spots, so don't think you're going to go down there with a ton of people. But we'll start beach walks once that's in too, and that'll probably be that way. So we have the CDB GDR money as well that we've been talking about for Newton Park, 3.5 million, I believe it is, and we've talked about that and how the park hopefully is going to look. We like the design, so hopefully we'll get the money on that. And again, it's a very unpredictable kind of scope, but we're hoping in June or July we'll get that money after all the reviews are done. So it's got to go to the county first, who distribute it. Then the county has their own. We have Tidal Basin here. They have their own company that oversees their grants and everything. And then it's got to go to HUD, which is the federal level, to review those 2 steps. So that's why it's taken so long. So once we get the money, and we've already been allocated the money. We just haven't gotten it yet. So, so that should happen. And once we get it, we can start the consulting to get the landscape architect in there and do our thing. So that's kind of the timeline on that. I'm sorry, it's kind of choppy, but
It's
I don't
okay.
like to give timelines and dates because we know how timelines and dates go. But right now, it's gonna fit our purpose for now, for beach access, parking, and restroom, and then after the beach renourishment is done, and we get our CDBG, DR money, then we're gonna start the redevelopment, and it'll be awesome. It'll be 3.5 million will go a long way in that part.
For 8 parking spots?
No, that'll be a
That's
total,
just-
that's just for now.
That's
For now.
Temporary.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can fit 8 in there. I might be give or take 1 or 2.
But this is the temporary one, this is
Okay.
not the ultimate, the completion.
The other one will have more spots than it had before.
Nate,
That's
weren't
great.
you talking originally about 17 parking spaces that will be adjacent to the beach
Was it
access?
17? I thought it was in the 20s, but it was 22. That's what I thought.
22, okay,
Yeah,
so
at one
ultimately
time.
there will be.
Yep.
But I guess, and I don't know if, you know, what everybody's feeling is, but it seems to me that it's so short-sighted, sorry, of the town to put in those 8 spaces in that restroom, only to have it moved to the beach access area within a year. I mean, financially, that doesn't seem to make sense. Could you explain why that is happening?
We had we've had, I don't say outcry, but a lot of residents that have voiced their opinion to get restrooms and parking back there. Part of our thing too is we need to start doing beach walks as part of the Florida Land Trust
Absolutely, yes.
grant. And we've kinda gotten a pause on that, but we really need to start doing them so we can get those in and report those. And we just don't have any other parking down there, so it really
I would say just. as a-
financially,
Yeah, no, as somebody who uses the beach a lot, and walks along the beach, takes bike rides, there's no place to go to the bathroom, and I think people who live along there, people are using their yards, and
Yeah,
It's
if
a-
you
exactly.
remember,
yeah.
the restroom itself was paid for by TDC.
Right, yes, of course.
So
I
it just,
understand.
the earthwork,
Yeah,
And the meter, cause that meter, I mean,
well, we have to get power back there anyway.
Anyway,
There was
right.
power there before,
Mhm.
so infrastructure-wise, it didn't,
It's not, it wasn't a huge expense is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, we used to have the Wyndham and the Outrigger and all kinds of nice places to stop. They were always
Right.
very generous with their facilities, and it's just nothing. It's kinda scary, yeah.
Right.
yeah, and if we just went with regular porta potties, we know how that goes.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
doesn't-
people don't
exactly.
like that.
It's
So,
so good.
yeah, this was, I would say a priority for the town and the
Good.
residents.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, I understood.
Yeah. Jeff, on your beach walks, who will be doing those?
We can-
Oh, sorry. Sorry, you said Jeff.
Yeah.
So
sorry,
I'll
Jeff-
defer to the guy
Jeff-
that runs
yeah,
the place.
Jeff mentioned it, because.
yes,
Yeah.
so it'd be staff, and just like before, staff and a mixture of volunteers.
Okay.
Once we get that kind of the beach walk program reestablished.
Good.
Right, because
So
that's,
it'll be just like before.
good, because it's very, very popular,
It
and
is.
that's one thing, with the people that did the beach walk, they were very encouraging on membership to the Mount House.
Yes.
It was a great
We got a lot
cross
of members
promotional.
that way.
And once we
So-
start doing them, hopefully this is the problem we have. We have too many people that wanna come,
Yes.
we don't have enough parking
Right,
spots, so maybe they
exactly.
can
We
park
get
at
20, 30.
the Mound House and we can van over or something like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
We'll think of
Yeah,
something,
but that's
and I
great.
hope we have that problem,
That's
yeah,
great,
for sure.
yes.
But
yeah.
we're also,
So too.
within the next few days or early next week, we'll have, more trash cans down there too, receptacles.
Good.
I mean, we've done a pretty good job, our staff going down and trying to clean it up, even though it's an active construction site. I mean, I went there and picked up a handful of water bottles yesterday, or, you know, it just blows in, or people on the beach, you know.
Yeah,
It wasn't
makes
awful at
sense to
all,
have
it
it.
actually was, I shouldn't be surprised, but it was a lot more clean than I thought it was gonna be. So I had
This is
reports that it was
great.
filthy and there's trash everywhere. There's a little debris in the construction site, which could be fenced off a little bit more, but which we're working on.
Mhm, Great. Good, good.
Okay,
Good.
any other questions with regard to Newton Beach Park?
Oh, on the design, my memory's a little fuzzy on, did we sign off on a design for Newton Park?
We did, it was given to us by that DG, what is the name?
R2P2?
DRMP,
Oh, it's
urban
R2P2.
planning? Yes,
R2P2.
Okay.
but then
company
we
was-
we
it
had
wasn't-
that land planning group, that charrette, that workshop that we
Yeah, where
had.
were they from?
DRMP, I believe?
No, it wasn't DRMP.
No?
The people that were here?
Yeah,
No, that was,
So I guess my
FEMA had brought those, the federal government brought those.
Oh, the federal, right, and then that we brought that plan back to, CELCAB, and we voted that we approved.
Okay, so
the
this is what
recommendation.
will be done, is what we
That is-
voted, okay.
yes.
That was my,
Yes,
yeah.
so it's a site plan that
Right now, but
include
I'll
where
follow
the
up with a phone call.
restrooms were gonna go,
It may
where
not
the
be
parking
listed.
was gonna go, where the pavilion. And I think once we get a little further along, that's gonna come back to us, because I think there's been some changes with regard to the specifics about what will be included. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff, are we gonna be able to have another opportunity to revisit that site plan before the,
Oh,
bid
yeah.
goes out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, we have some time. We'll have to send this off, we'll have to put it out for bid, so that'll be, at least 30, 60 plus, so the bid process will probably take 2.5 months.
Okay,
Not 2.5, yeah, about 2.5 months.
2.5 months, okay, so then that could be brought back to CELCAB.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys, hopefully you all watch BoardCab, but, we had this discussion yesterday with BoardCab and the kind of the process, it's gonna be one of those things where we have a timeline to spend this money. They wanna see it progress, which is awesome for this project, because we've
Yeah.
already looked at a design we like. So like, for the pool, it's gonna, here's your design, minor tweaks, that kind of thing. We know what the general public wants from the R2P2 for that too, so, it's gonna be nothing's quick, but quicker process than, let's say, the Bay Oaks redevelopment that took years.
I think when we were having that recommendation, we voted in general that site plan
Yeah.
was, acceptable and approved. But then there was always a question, whether we were going to take advantage of our vice chair's, recommendation for swings.
Those are
Or
going in
was
there.
there going to be the bocce ball court, which now has generated apparently new, proponents of the bocce ball court. So I think there were some fuzzy areas about that site plan that were still up for discussion. I'm not quite sure. Am I right, Jim?
You are right, we're gonna wanna make sure that swing set is aligned just right to see the sunset as you're swinging off.
Jim will be
Yeah.
Looking at the picture right now, they're in the background of this drawing.
Oh, it's beautiful, it's
And not the
beautiful,
ones yeah, there's swings back there.
beautiful.
Yeah, we'll see if we can fit, bocce just wasn't used there that much.
Was what?
Bocce ball
Well,
wasn't,
that was what I understood, and then I think when the public heard
Well-
that they were going away,
There's a-
but you're not going to take
I think that was
the bocce ball.
Carrie who
Yeah,
became an
yeah.
advocate for the bocce ball.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Carrie became an advocate for the bocce ball.
Yes, yes.
And they're not mutually exclusive, we may be able to do both, but I don't know.
Exactly, you can play
depends-
bocce ball, no one's on the swing.
yeah, and it depends what we want in the park. Do we want
Right.
more vegetation? Do we want more picnic area?
I think we did want the pathways and the interpretive signage for the various plants and the emphasis and the encouragement of planting native plants. Which, after these storms is more vital than ever, so I
Florida
think that
friendly, I think the name is now. It's
Florida
not even though
friendly.
they were native, they're,
Yeah, Florida.
at least Florida.
some were
friendly.
coming off the list
Yes.
of native.
And we're hopefully not closing the door on acquiring the property next door, so that's still.
Really?
I mean, the grants, as Adam and Jeff have said, have diminished a bit, but we're still working with the various land trusts to try to find those funds, but it's a pretty steep price tag,
What's the
Yes,
ask on
that
that?
was
yeah,
pricey.
yeah, for
What's
Strandview.
good- Just one thing, and I keep bringing it back up, but I think it'd be a great way for us to get a grant or some recognition, is if in our park, that we put some little thing for autistic children or challenged children or something like that. I think it seems to be
Yeah.
kind of the
ADA.
thing nowadays.
Yeah, and
We
we're
can
already
say-
putting in, obviously, we want to, but it's gotta be ADA compliant and,
Right,
the
right.
signs have to be a certain
Sure.
height, so.
Just something that seems to be going around today that's popular.
Yeah, if we could put something even,
It wouldn't
with
have to
all,
be big, just, yeah.
and we're gonna try to find a place to put, we did get the beach, wheelchairs in, we're putting them together
Oh.
now, so we're trying to find a spot where to keep them, and
Good.
we can't really put sheds out anymore, so it's,
Did you say that beach access is actually open now?
Yeah.
To the public?
it's been open
Okay,
the whole time, well, not the whole
No,
time, but it's been
it's
open
closed.
for, I'd say, 6 months, at least, 6
the
to
access
12
itself.
months.
Okay, Good.
Jim, in that Strand View property, what's the price tag on that?
14, I think.
Yeah, I've heard anywhere from 10 to 14 in that
14.
range, yeah.
Last I heard was 14.
Yeah, okay, I defer to Jeff on that.
$14, yeah.
Nice.
Take it.
Karina might have.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
It would be
we
lovely.
actually we had a conversation yesterday at Board Cab too about pocket parks in town,
Mm.
just little parks and acquiring land, and it's not always the easiest to do. I mean, there's some that are attainable for, we were talking about one 650,000, and
Yeah.
that might be our ceiling. So 14 million, we can get probably. I mean, we'd have to apply and all that, but maybe $1 million in the Florida Land Trust, but
That's
we're
long
still
way to go.
coming up a tad short.
I don't know if you had heard that, from our meeting at BORCAB yesterday with regard to the property that seemed to be within that $1 million budget is $650,000 for the opportunity maybe to have the town put in a little pocket park on Lagoon Street, which is obviously, the south part of
can't
the
remember what
island is
condo was there,
obviously
but-
not well served by our park system that we currently have with the town. That would have been a nice opportunity that I'd love for council to continue to pursue.
That's a great
And we're not
idea.
talking about like a pickleball, softball,
Yeah,
baseball
right,
park.
no.
Right, just
a
beach
nice
access,
park where you
yeah.
can ride your bike to or walk to, even drive. Maybe you have a couple parking spots and some benches.
Yeah,
Maybe a little bit of workout.
Yeah, I mean, there really is
Facility
no
shop,
public
swing.
beach access on the south end, so
Right.
that would, to have a pocket park there would be
But
wonderful.
Yeah, it's
And
not,
that's what
it's
we-
not beachfront.
So is this
Okay.
Bayfront?
It's not bayfront either.
It's on the
just-
inside of
It's
the street.
towards the end of Lagoon.
Yep.
Towards what's that other?
I don't know, I'm not familiar with that.
well,
The
area.
one Joy, I think.
Bay
Joy
Beach
lives in.
Lane,
Maybe.
that's
No,
where
no, she
Joy
lives
is.
on Bay
What's-
Beach Lane. Lagoon
What's
is,
the?
is,
It was a 3-letter like development, like the development company or.
cause Lagoon is in not Tropical Shores, it's Laguna Shores.
Yeah.
Lagoon's,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
Lagoon is the street that goes around, back around, and it,
I think
Part
where
of
it curves is where there used to be like some condos, and that's the location.
The
we were looking
property.
at.
now that's all that's all single-family residential.
There was a condo there.
There's a couple condos.
It was
It
a
worked?
it was
Yeah.
a fairly decent sized area.
Yeah, which I thought was
Cause it's
interesting.
Buccaneer that you come in, cause I walk in that area
Yeah.
all the time, it's
Redfish.
Buccaneer, and then you get to, what, I can't remember the name, I don't pay
I don't know.
attention.
Ed Schoonover, who's on BORCAB, lives over there too. and
Okay.
He knows the area. So
Okay,
anyway, not part of this conversation, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are looking at other parts.
good.
Speaking of parks.
Yeah, cause there's a lot of, there's a lot of stuff that's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the goal here is for the town to acquire property so we can expand our amenities for
That's lovely.
recreation.
That's wonderful,
And I think that would be worth pursuing.
an admirable goal.
But
And on
that's
the
not on
south
our
end,
agenda, so,
That's one of my goals is to get something on the south end.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And we know we can't afford beachfront, so that's off the table. And we do have bayfront with the Mount House,
Right.
for which we're very grateful, and Newton Park, of course, beachfront, but,
Dover, Cole, and Partners.
oh,
That's
Dover
the name.
Cole.
That's the
Oh,
name.
okay, that's the group of
Sorry,
names.
just found it.
Dover Cole, thank you.
Had to comb through my 1 or 2 emails.
DRMP with the old Bay Oaks community thing, that's what that was. All right, let's move on. Museum Assessment Program, the MAP program, which obviously you all are familiar with, and I'll let Adam speak to that.
Yes. So this isn't all of the map report. You might notice it's been subdivided into sub point A, B, and C. So those are going to be the first 3 sections of the map report. I hope you don't lose your copy. I mean, if you do, I'll make another one. But we'll be talking about the map report in this final map report from the peer reviewer in the American Alliance of Museums for probably the next 3 meetings. And hopefully in implementing the recommendations as a stated goal for the town to have the Mount House accredited. So this is, again, just like when the peer reviewer was here, going to be our roadmap in terms of fulfilling those best standards and practices set forth by the American Alliance of Museums, the overarching, for lack of a better word, governing authority for museums in the United States. This program, very thankfully, was free for the town. through funding from the American Alliance Museums and from funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. This was a free program that was a courtesy. So, yes, so this was paid for all last year. So thankfully, the Institute of Museum and Library Services and the American Alliance Museums covered all costs for the peer reviewer to come down, work on this program, have staff from the American Alliance Museums work with me and other staff, part of that MAP team especially, to work a good almost 6 months, Barbara,
At least.
where the members of the MAP team, myself, Jeff, Karina, which is why Karina's here, if you're wondering,
Good.
Nancy Smith, who I invited to this meeting today. I didn't hear back from her.
Okay.
So hopefully she'll be here in the next meetings as we talk about. And then of course our Madam Chair, Barbara Hill, was in attendance. That 5-person MAP team met almost every 2 weeks, I'd say, for a good 6-month period to submit that report to give basically the whole inside out, top to bottom, floor to ceiling of what Mound House is, the full institutional history, our various relationships, what the advisory board is, our management structure, the peer reviewer in preparation for his visit, of course, became familiar with the town charter, town ordinances, state, and of course, being from the American Alliance of Museums, very familiar with best museum practices.
Yes.
Um,
Very key.
So,
And if you, just to kind of back up a little more, this was part of our strategic plan.
Absolutely.
which I also included in your packet.
This was always one of our goals when we
Mhm.
did the strategic plan.
I remember
back
that.
This opens up
Teresa's time.
other possibilities as well.
Absolutely, funding
Funding
opportunities.
Yeah, so very, very excited that we were able to accomplish this huge hurdle towards accreditation. Very, very excited about implementing some of these policies to help make the Mound House and all the various stakeholders involved with the Mound House work in lockstep, in collaboration, to make it even stronger and better than it is.
Did we get it done December 2024? Was it done by then?
No, so initially,
That was what we had in our strategic plan,
Yeah.
sorry.
well, technically,
Oh, not bad
Te-
though, I
Yeah.
mean.
I know.
oh,
Technically, I guess so Allison had initially applied for this program
Mhm.
with Ian, or well, she applied for it before Ian, and then Ian hit, and then we had to withdraw. And you might remember that process, but thankfully, after things calmed down in 2024, we were able to
Picked up.
reapply, and it was free this time, so I guess it worked out for us.
Did.
So after visiting for 2 days, meeting with various members of the town staff, CELCAB and council in that joint meeting with the Friends group, and then reviewing the MAP workbook that was over 150 pages that MAP team worked on, getting input from staff, the advisory board, and Friends. The peer reviewer issued his final reports, which were, as I'd like to point out again, a snapshot in time for the time he visited and the 6 weeks or so afterwards. So while we were dealing with Helene and Milton, he was typing in Oklahoma. So just to give you a better time frame of when this was submitted. So a couple things we've already accomplished, like the collection storage room, which will be discussed more next meeting. But a good part of the MAP program, which is divided, it used to be, you might remember, Madam Chair, it was MAP 1, 2, and 3. They've since updated it, which it was applicable for us. They now subdivided MAP not as a step program, but as a targeted focus area on education, collections management, community engagement, and organizational. And this is what this is. So this is the organizational museum assessment program, and the real meat and potatoes, forgive the euphemism, or the cliche,
Oh, hungry.
yeah, I know, is really the governance of Mound House. And again, really trying to help better define roles and responsibilities between CELCAB, Friends, the town council, staff, which going through meeting minutes from CELCAB and town council since the Mound House was around has always been a point of confusion, especially when new members are joining. Every 18 months to 2 years, it comes up during CELCAB meetings, you know, where does one start, where does the next end in regards to roles, responsibilities. And again, the goal of this program was to help clarify and begin those conversations that have always kind of been of a, what do you call it, sticky
Sticky wicket?
yeah, or sticky. and then helping us give that roadmap so we have a better sense of who's on first. So we can continue forward in working most efficiently and most effectively, especially with taxpayer money, in regards to everyone involved. Because there are a lot of people, very passionate people involved at Mound House. And I guess if there's any questions about like, what this program is before we go on to, I guess, point A, I'm happy to answer any questions
Jim,
about general
You
questions.
received my email with this? I sent this out to
I did,
council.
and I read the report, and I've got some comments and concerns, but at the appropriate time. Are we talking about governance?
I just wanted to make sure you received it.
No, thank you, I did. And are we talking about governance right now?
No, Mr. Vice Mayor, we kind of just are at, I guess, the agenda topic, the first part. If there's any questions generally about what the program was, and then I guess it's up to discretion of the chair about moving forward through to mission and planning, and then governance would be point B.
Can
But
I
if you have
ask-
any questions, please?
I do have an overview question, Adam, and I've read through the report, and there's a number of recommendations in the report. Are they, and it was difficult from the gentleman who was here, who came before the council in our joint meeting, to discern, are these just sort of, in his opinion, best practices, or are these actual benchmarks to reach the accreditation that we're trying to achieve?
They're benchmarks.
Okay, so
Yeah.
these are specific benchmarks, okay.
Yes, at the beginning of each section, so for example, if you turn to page 8 of the map report, you'll see the first section, mission and planning, and he relates the related core standards for what not only makes a good museum, but also an efficient museum, and like you said, meeting those steps towards accreditation.
Barbara, the pages are numbered.
Yes.
Sorry?
The pages are numbered?
I know, I was just thinking about that. As a matter of fact, I wanted to compliment Adam on his staff report, which was also numbered. On page 2. Just, I noticed.
I did think about you when I did that.
Yes, key.
I had some, as I read the report, I highlighted some some concerns, thank you for that word, Barbara, were things that just seem to be quite accurate, and I'm not sure how specifically accurate this is supposed to be. He lists the Estero Bay Preserve as a state park. It's actually an aquatic preserve, which is a unique designation, so, and I know that we can make modifications so that the actual record
Yeah.
is straight, because I think that designation is gonna be critical, because there's pressure on the state to rearrange it so that things can be developed. So I think noting it as a park and it's aquatic preserve, I suspect might be legally something different.
And I don't think that this is actually going to be a legal document that, people, say for example, if we go through funding or any kind of legal designation, this is only his report as a result of those map meetings that
Yeah,
we
I mean,
had. So
I even
it's-
think he called the town a city a couple times. So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
I
little things
think
like that.
It's
to
little-
your point, this isn't really a legal document, this is just his take on the meetings that we've had going forward.
Okay, all right, well, that, because they also referred to the underground as a basement.
Yeah.
Many
Yeah.
many people within the town say that.
FEMA had it classified when we just had a couple meetings on
Yeah.
it, cause they're doing their site visits and stuff, for Helene and Milton, which they haven't even done yet, so that tells you how backed up they are. And they have it labeled as the basement.
Yeah, so that must be some
So we
designation.
mostly Adam has set them straight on that one, and they,
Yeah, and again, this was his recommendations after a 2-day visit. I sometimes get who owns which property, and sometimes I make mistakes, and I've worked at the Mound House for 5 years, and there's people who, have lived in this area the whole time who might get 1 or 2 semantic facts wrong, but I don't think it should distract from the entire purpose of this report.
Thank you, Ellen, for pointing that out. What
Well,
was it?
and even the acquisition of the properties, that's, information's not accurate either. Because it's Florida Forever Funds, and it was, the activity to buy the property began in 1996, not in 2000.
And again, it is hard to condense the complexity of the history of the Mound House in a 1-page report, not focused on the history of the Mound House.
Yeah, and I know I am nitpicking because it's the love of my life. One of the loves of my life. It's the
Yeah.
non-human love of my life. How's that?
yeah, I don't know, I can't say where he got all this information, maybe he got it off online somewhere, I don't even know, but I'm sure he did his best to research what he could.
Right. And I also think it makes it sound like we don't know what we're doing, because he said only 3 members knew the mission.
Yeah, that was, I remember that meeting, I
That was at
couldn't
the-
say it verbatim either, we only had, yeah, no one could say it word for word.
It's-
That's-
And we're supposed to memorize it like.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
Well,
that-
you know,
Yes,
and-
you are.
And I didn't even speak up, and of course, I kind of knew what the mission statement was, but I wanted to give everybody else, you know, an opportunity, especially council, you know, because you wanna know that they know, right? And it doesn't help if somebody else who really has an accurate understanding of the mission to say it at the
That'll
outset.
teach you.
And then they'll say whatever she said or whatever he
Right.
said.
Yeah,
So
and it
that's
doesn't-
sort of an easy out for, you know, so it did not give that peer reviewer an accurate,
Yeah, and I know personally, I'm called out in this a few times, and it's like, yeah, I didn't know the mission from start to
Yeah.
end. I knew it was 2,000 years of historical whatever, and I gotta learn it. But yeah, I've been like personally, I was called out for not visiting enough or being there enough and all that. So, and I realize that's a deficiency of mine. I have a lot, a lot going on, and I'm gonna try my best to be there.
Yeah, and he also does highlight our strengths, which he does say numerous times. And if we go through strategic planning, a good part of strategic planning is recognizing all the successes we've had. So I don't think, while there are a lot of challenges that we have to overcome in terms of, reaching the ultimate standard of what makes an accredited museum, that's why there's only, 1% of all museums in the United States are accredited. It's a high standard to
Right.
achieve, one we should reach for, but we should also be mindful of, the unique history of Mount House, the passion that the community has about Mount House,
Absolutely.
the staffing, the fact that town has a museum. No other municipality in the Southwest Florida area has a museum as part of its governance. So it's a very rare treasure that, sure, we might have to polish it up a bit, but it's still a treasure, and I don't think we should, focus all on the negative. We should also, he does point out a lot of our successes we've
Absolutely.
accomplished, especially after Ian. I mean, like he points out on page 1, the town's lost 50% of its population
Yeah.
through displacement, and we're recovering after 5 hurricanes, and attendance is up at Mount House
Yeah, which is
post-Ian.
phenomenal.
So there's a lot of successes we should celebrate as well. So I just want to keep that in mind as we go through the map process, to focus on the positive as well.
And I think that the full support of council throughout, and this wasn't early on, as
Right.
we know, it was pretty dicey at the very beginning, because there were people on council that didn't understand or respect what this was going to be. But, to the council's credit, they have been so incredibly supportive. And that is always helpful, especially during budget time.
Yes, they have put a lot from the general fund into the Mount House, which is needed, but also generous.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, Ellen, more, questions?
No, with putting that in perspective, I will stop with my nitpicking.
No,
Um,
and I have a couple of things too that I thought,
Yeah, but I mean,
needed
and it doesn't hurt to
clarification.
make notes like that, I mean, it is
Yeah.
a document that we want to be as accurate as possible, so that's not out of the realm.
Yeah,
You know.
and it is just for our own personal records, just like the
Yeah.
chair said. Like, if we find an error, they don't edit it.
Yeah, I
We can
noticed
send
that.
it back our notes that there's an error and they'll put it in our file, but they won't change the report.
Right.
We can put it on for our own knowledge, like we know the Estero,
Yeah.
it's
for
a
animals.
state aquatic reserve. So in terms of our planning moving forward, that's something we can refer back to this document and have notes and appendixes that will help us moving forward. So that we can definitely do all those things that you're recommended, so in no way do I wanna shut down conversations, I just wanted to remind everyone that there's also good things in the report as well.
Oh, yeah, and perhaps it's just a note of adjustments, because
Yeah.
there are times when knowing the difference between something happening immediately and something having
Yeah.
taken 4 years to accomplish can be meaningful.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't know how this document is gonna be
Yeah.
used in the future, so
Correct.
you don't
You're-
wanna, you don't wanna know that there's something that could be fixed that you don't fix.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's something that's tangible, that's here that we know, yeah.
It's a point of departure too, so, as far as the conversation goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're locking in today the governance portion of this, and with the idea that this can be extended for subsequent meetings, correct?
Yeah, so, based on the agenda, I guess the next agenda point is the mission
I
and
know,
planning
it's-
session on page 8. So we kind of already talked about the mission statement. Best museum practices is that everyone involved in Mound House can recite the Mound House mission, because mission is core, it's your identity, it's your soul. It's affecting our decision process moving forward with the underground museum, with tours. It's how volunteers are helping on kayak tours. It's how the finance department is helping us look for grants for Mound House. So it's really core to our mission. We can't really move forward without a solid foundation and a solid soul, not to put it sentimental, but of what the institution is before we can even discuss a strategic plan or planning for the future. So that's why it's so important that everyone do recite the mission, and most museum programs and museum thought is whenever you start a program, whenever you start a meeting, like before every CELCAB meeting, for example, we could recite this Mound House mission and the Newton Beach Park mission. You know, I've trained, and through the National Association for Interpretation, they train staff, and I train the staff as well. At the beginning of every program, we state the mission statement. Last night at the lecture, I stated the mission statement, and I stated again we're owned by the town of Fort Myers Beach, so there's some continuity about who we are and what we do. Why we're having a lecture about food, on the archaeology of food. It's
Which
because
was great, by the way, last
Oh,
night.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
It
you.
was really
I mean, that's
nice.
not abnormal for, you know,
Yeah.
even like with youth programs, the Boy Scouts,
Girl Scouts.
at the Girl Scouts, I
Yep.
haven't been a part of that meeting. So, you know, Little League, they recite, so I mean, it's a
Mhm.
good habit to be in to remind us what we're here for.
Right. Yeah, some of the not-for-profits on the island do it too.
I'm sorry?
Some of the not-for-profits on the island do that.
Do they really?
Mhm.
Oh,
We do the
interesting.
pledge at every meeting,
yeah.
Yeah,
pledge of allegiance.
so I was gonna say,
Not-
just
not
like,
been pledged.
I have to stand up.
That's
They
okay.
still make one, but I say no.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do.
I can't see.
Um,
Not that they don't clean, I just don't use one.
Can you get through?
So
No, I
perhaps in the
couldn't.
summertime, before again I've discussed this with the Madam Chair, before we even talk about the strategic plan, which is one of the core documents required for accreditation of this big checklist of accreditation, a part of that is mission. So, you know, revisiting, and he does recommend we revisit our mission, because he does point out that some of the staff feel they may be doing activities that don't align with the mission. There may be a lack of familiarity with the mission, and not a lot of communication about, you know, what are we doing here, you know? So maybe a good time to revisit the mission, which is good practice anyway.
to that end, and you know, it is the key point of why we exist and what we raise money for. But when we did this, when we first did the strategic planning, we had an outside facilitator, because we recognized that it wasn't just about what the town staff wants, or what CELCAB wants, or what Friends wants. We wanted members of the community and their input when we'd have these workshops, if you remember. I think we had 2 or 3 for each one of these. We had one for the Mound House, we had one for Bay Oaks. And with the intent that, you know, because this is a community, and we want everybody to be involved and engaged and supportive of the outcome, that it is an outside facilitator's job to garner that emotion, or that intellect, or that idea into the mission plan that serves everyone.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that's valid, because we're doing that right now at the council level. You know,
okay,
we have an outside entity in here to help with the
so,
town.
so you would advocate for us to do something similar, when we revisit the mission?
Yes, absolutely,
It's
especially,
appropriate to do, for sure.
Good.
yes.
Good, good. I think that would be, right?
Just like this is
My understanding, but it's okay.
Yeah.
just like this is, you know, an overview by somebody that's impartial, hasn't been with us, knows what they're doing, same as its strategic plan, someone that knows what they're doing, what we need to be talking about. You know, it's same, I would assess it the same as this MAPS program, is
Right.
somebody from the outside coming in, not having the heart and the emotion, telling us how it is and what we need to do to go forward. I think
Okay.
that's appropriate.
Great.
I mean, obviously we'll be involved, I'm not saying that, but somebody that's steer us in the right direction, so, which they're doing it at the council level right now, and they have little workshops, and they split off into tables,
And I understand at some point, there was a conversation that our strategic plans would dovetail beautifully with the towns.
Hope so.
Is there any effort toward that?
There is, however, what did they say the timeline is on ours? I know, Jim.
No,
She
no,
said
but
like 2 years or
It's,
something.
yeah,
And I know-
it's extraordinary.
And I don't wanna quote Jim, but it was like 2 years, she said this will take 2 years, and he's like, I'd like to do it in 6 months.
Yeah.
So,
The makeup
which
of the
I agree
council's
with.
likely to be different in 2 years.
What's
We have
that?
we have elections, the council will be different in 2 years.
It was a
I don't
unique,
think it's about the council per se, it's about
Right.
the town.
Oh,
So
the
it-
town,
you know,
okay.
it does
Yeah.
that.
It's a
Gotcha.
collective.
Change dramatically with the new council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so to my point is, I'm not sure how we wanna do that. I mean, I certainly do not wanna wait 2 years.
No.
And
So,
I'm hoping that's not the actual case, but
Maybe that's managing expectations.
Well,
I think
what
it's gonna
would
take
be-
2 years and then you get it done in
3 months, hey,
so Adam, what do you think is a good timeline for us to think about the strategic plan?
I was gonna say, I think, in terms of a timeline, I have us discussing my own internal timeline about thinking strategically about this process. I kind of estimated discussing the map report and just the report, not really actionable items, like taking notes, of course, and getting reactions and recommendations, changing anything that might be, incorrect and updating that for our own personal edification. Through the May, 2025.
Through to May, so the next,
This
the
May, don't
April
worry.
and May, like you're talking about.
Yes, so this month,
two
next
additional
month, and
months.
so 2 more months, and then June, maybe have that one just discussing mission, and bring in and invite outside community groups and outside stakeholders, to be involved in the mission and getting their
Would
feedback.
that require the facilitator then?
It could. In my opinion, I think a facilitator is definitely a path we could go, but I don't think it's I shouldn't say necessary, but a required benchmark we have to accomplish. And of course, there can be more discussion on that, but that's my own 2 cents. That I think because we are, we're the museum within the town. We're part of the town, but we have this very interesting relationship that I think at least just having a meeting to discuss the mission and involve outside stakeholders and getting everyone's feedback and input, because it might be that everyone sits at the table and go, I love the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we could get to that point, we love the mission, and then facilitators just there.
So you're
and
talking
changing
about,
missions isn't, I mean, you all probably know, you've been on committees, isn't abnormal. I mean, I worked for the Boys and Girls Club for 20 years, and they were a part of Boys and Girls of America for over 100 years, and at that point, we changed the mission.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very bizarre, like, it's been around for 100 years, why would you change it? But it's appropriate to what's going on today.
Yeah.
so are you suggesting then the conversation can be split between the two? In other words, the mission statement would be one conversation and the strategic plan would be another?
That's what I'm thinking, because we
Okay.
have, again, the mission being really that soul guiding us, and the strategic plan being about, so the mission being who we are, and then also a vision statement. We have a vision statement as well. Thankfully, he didn't ask
right,
me what the
mission
vision
and vision.
statement was. I wouldn't know for the Mound House unless I looked on the strategic plan. But the vision statement is, so the mission statement is who we are, and the vision statement is who do we want to be.
Right.
And the strategic plan is how are we going to get to meet our mission, use our mission to guide us to our vision statement. So I think establishing point A and point B, then we can have that next meeting of discussing, okay, how are we going to go from point A to point B with that strategic plan
Okay.
meeting. And I would imagine the strategic plan.
So that's how to implement it, that makes sense.
And I would imagine the strategic planning will be lengthy, not just a single meeting, though we can try, do a speed run meeting. But I was envisioning going through probably October with the strategic plan, and if we were done by this calendar year with the strategic plan, and have that established, that'd be my goal. Maybe October. Maybe in the November meeting we could revisit some of the tabled items that we have, like the collection management policy, and discuss that in November. And with the mission, vision, the strategic plan, we'll have a better sense of reviewing the collection management policy and maybe get it approved in November, and then we all take a nice deserved break in December.
Okay,
Um,
in what part of that timeline would our facilitator come in and have the issue of the strategic plan discussed and before it's finalized?
Probably in the summer. So
In
I
the
don't-
summer.
probably starting in June and then so June talking about the mission, and then July, August,
So then we
September,
have to-
October,
Yeah, we have to put
Um,
somebody in, secure someone
and again,
and hire them to come in and do the facilitating for us.
we could go that route, yeah.
I think that's necessary.
Because I think you're talking about two different things, because the way we did the strategic plan in 2016, it was a Saturday, we spent literally a Saturday, we spent, and it was.
The whole day.
I
It was
like
a
it.
6 or an 8 hour day.
Exact, well,
Alright.
didn't we do two? I think we did two,
Oh,
sessions.
Saturday, we did do 2 Saturdays.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
did it in 2 settings, because then you don't lose your train of thought.
Yeah, and I'm just
Right.
looking
That's
through
a
the
good idea.
current one, and
Yeah, and the
it says we need to replace the AV system, which is accurate in the underground.
yeah, and then he does point out, like, we did have a facilitator last time. The strategic plan based on institutional standards is not a strategic plan. It's more of a to-do list
which is
It-
fine, let's just redo
so-
it, but I think the point is
in
to
terms of
bring
the,
in-
our structure. So those 2 Saturdays didn't make a strategic plan. It made a checklist because it doesn't have, as he points out in his report, you know, who's accomplishing it, and then also when things would be accomplished, there was no metric or measurable standards.
Yeah, we had, you know, a timeline, I mean, we had accomplished by or something like
Yeah,
that.
and then some were very
A
vague.
target date,
Yeah, and some are very vague, like secure collection
right,
was a goal.
and like
Se-
ongoing, for
physically
example.
secure, legally secure.
Yeah, and on
Um,
this one, I don't know when this was updated, but it says complete. We just are
Well,
not.
Yeah,
the
it was not
last
secure.
one was 2021 was this, so.
But I think we updated this as we went.
Yeah, this is the 2021 version.
Yeah.
And it
But-
said that the
But the
collection
point is,
secure.
this was better than what we had, which was no strategic
Oh,
plan.
for sure, yeah, yeah.
With the idea
I'm
that
just saying,
at
it was
least there
updated
was
as we went, so.
The format that enabled us to kind of keep track of what our goals, short and long-term goals were going to be. No doubt that this can be updated, obviously, this is 10 years old
Yeah, I
for the
completely,
most part, so,
I completely agree this is obviously better than nothing.
yes.
But I think we should enter into viewing and working on a strategic plan and not view this as updating this document, but entering with a new mindset of what a strategic plan is.
What I understood a strategic plan to be is that it's not necessarily a static document, but it was something that was going to be revisited. I believe we're gonna do that every 6 months to
Uh-huh.
say, okay, you know,
Right, that'll be-
who's doing this, when, was this successful, are we going to add? And it was a living document, it was a
Uh-huh.
moving
Yeah.
document, as I recall. Why would that not
Yeah.
be a good idea for us to continue?
No, in terms of its format, not it being a living document.
Oh,
So I agree with you that it is a living document and you do have to update it, but like for example, as he points out, in essence, it was not a living document because accomplished goals were kept in.
right.
Not
Well, and-
for own edification, but that, you know, why have a goal that's already met as a goal?
Right, yeah, no,
Year after
agreed.
year.
So
Yeah.
it's a matter of how you're documenting it. but-
Yes.
So you
Well,
wanna keep it
format.
master,
And-
these are the past accomplishments, so it gets into an appendix.
Ex- Exactly.
Yeah, and I think
That's a
the
great way to
issue
put it.
here is that we, as volunteers, do not do this. It's the staff that does this. And
Yes.
so staff's got gazillion other things to do, like,
Yep.
as case in point, Karina and Adam. So that if it's not being updated, and if those goals that have been accomplished are not eliminated and added, you know, with new ones, then that's the staff responsibility that
And if
we're
we're not
dropping
doing
the
it,
ball.
that's where you come in.
Right,
Yes.
so that's, so, yeah, just understanding the division of
But
responsibility.
I think
Absolutely.
it's appropriate, I know, saying, but I think it's appropriate because you all, your job is to recommend,
Right,
to give recommendations on it. So yeah, reviewing it every 6 months, maybe a year.
Right.
I think we're hoping at WorkCab to do every year at least, but.
right,
You know, and what the staff does do it is the staff's job, you
as
know,
if they
is-
don't have anything to do.
But yeah, but I mean, taking recommendations, I mean, it's not like, you all don't vote it into policy. You give recommendations, which hopefully we're doing our best stewardship to, whether
Right.
it's a budgetary, time-wise, you know, something like that, to put it back in the strategic plan.
And then if you look on page 10 are the actual recommendations that summarize his findings. So kind of like what we are discussing, you know, the mission statement should be reviewed, if needed, rewritten. Make sure it fully aligns what's being done at the site and what we want to be done in the future. modify the district plan to include human resources and partnership, modify the district plan to include short-term goals, priorities, initiatives, midterm objectives, and long-term strategic plan. So kind of expanding it out and stretching it into a multi-tiered, scalable, living document that's very flexible, with measurable items that have specifically those tacks on how are we getting to point A, point B, who, when, where,
Great,
with whom,
that's wonderful.
and then evaluate it, like we were saying, at least quarterly, he recommends. So that's a lot more meat. Yes.
Which,
But it's only
it
4
doesn't,
times a
it
year.
doesn't take a lot to put it on the agenda and at least review it. I mean,
Yeah.
it really doesn't, it's not like we're developing it, it's just going through and,
Updating.
Yes,
Yeah. Or
especially
just-
like those short-term
Or,
goals.
just keeping us apprised of, the status of these things, yeah.
Yes.
And that doesn't, I think maybe we were talking about semi-annually, or, I think quarterly was really being a little too ambitious.
Every 6 months, I
6
think,
months,
so.
I
yeah, I
think,
think that
yes,
would be just fine.
Yeah.
okay.
Any-
Do it quarterly if we don't have anything else to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just to see each other.
exactly. So, I'm confused on this map assessment program. Are
Uh-huh.
we going to be going over it
Oh.
in depth at meetings, or we're just
Yeah,
to?
today
Yes.
we're just dealing with the issue of mission
Right,
and
right,
governance.
right.
So,
and
yeah, so
then-
we just went over, or
Right.
we're in the first section of,
Right,
10.
so during our meetings, we're gonna be going through
Yes.
this?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
for the next 2 meetings at least.
At
Before,
least.
I'm sorry, before we move on, does anybody need a break?
Sure, of
Need
course,
a restroom break? or,
absolutely, let's break, it is,
Just
what,
like
2:37, 10-minute break?
5, 10 minutes, whatever everyone needs. I just wanted to give everyone the opportunity to,
Let's, yeah,
I don't want everyone
let's
sitting
do
here
a
like
5-minute
dancing
break.
under the table.
Let's do a
Yes.
5-minute break.
Oh, and I'm standing because I'm still dealing with.
No,
my-
that's
with
fine.
my leg, and I
Actually,
can't sit there,
that's what
yeah.
made me think, actually, Ellen, maybe we should take a little break if anybody needs to.
Yeah.
get up.
Yeah,
That's
it's been 2.5 hours, so yeah, agreed.
Hour and a half.
I know.
Oh, yeah, hour and a half,
Okay,
yeah.
just if anybody needs, if you don't need
Feels-
it, that's fine.
feels like
5
2.5
minutes is
hours.
good.
And
I'm
so let's continue. Adam, you were in the conversation with the mission and planning.
Yeah, I just went over the recommendations, I guess. Again, these aren't my words, I'm just reading it, and kind of being the facilitator, for the whole thing, from the report to you as a body. But I guess any questions? I've read it a lot, or any comments on the recommendations? And again, these aren't binding recommendations that if we don't do exactly what AAM says in this report, they're not gonna, send us a note home to our parents or anything like that,
Well,
So anything, you could reject the whole thing. You could accept the whole thing, we could reject one or two, accept one or two, there's, again, this is for
Well,
us.
I
This
think-
isn't a report card or anything like
I
that.
think these recommendations were, I think, thoughtful and certainly based on the conversations we had during our MAP meetings. And as recommendations, I think it is much in keeping with what we talked about today. And clearly, a lot of this is the staff responsibility
Yeah.
to implement these recommendations. But if I'm not mistaken, I think we all agree that for the most part, these recommendations make sense.
Are the recommendations such that we would go through each one at some point and discuss?
I was thinking about the May meeting. The May meeting,
Okay.
I think, is a summary
Yeah.
and final recommendations as
Okay.
like a board action
'Cause I'd
to
be-
recommend to
That's what I was
council.
gonna say.
Yeah, I would be very
As
happy.
a
to have
summative
that.
meeting.
Yeah.
To kind of revisit, because again, it's a lot of information. You might be driving home or maybe hopefully
Or
driving on a
Or sitting
stereo.
in traffic.
Or sitting on your way home.
We're working on it.
And you might think of something that
Right.
you want to bring up next meeting,
Right.
or in May.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we didn't bring this on to say, hey, we're good with it?
Yes or no?
It's gonna be some time.
Right, and it's pretty ambitious for us to
Yeah.
even talk about the mission and the governance
That's
and
what I
was
that's
saying,
in
that's
this
a
one.
lot.
Like Adam said, this is gonna be the next
3 meetings.
number
yeah.
of meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So may I suggest that should we tackle governance this afternoon, or do you want to table that until the next meeting?
I would like to talk about it if possible.
All right, let's-
Because I think
let's-
governance and these sections are really interchangeable.
Yes.
Or not interchangeable, they really lockstep with each other and
Okay.
dovetail off each other. Especially the governance and public accountability sections. I think those are the two most important ones that
Okay,
really
just
set
like
the
mission
stage.
and planning was, the vision all for the initial part, this governance and public trust is, again, a component.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'd like to do the whole thing, so I don't have to go home and make dinner for my, for my company.
Oh,
Well, at this rate, we're gonna make breakfast.
I know, okay, we're ready.
How do you know they're not watching this live?
Uh-oh, hi guys. I hadn't thought of that.
Oh, that was great.
Thought of a,
There's film in this camera?
Oh, that was a good one. So you can get home later, so you can stay up later and have more time with them, right?
Exactly.
okay, Adam, I want you to run through the governance
All right.
portion of this.
Will do.
Obviously, it's quite.
So again, on just continuing on for governance, page page 11. At the top again it has those core related standards, which are kind of those benchmarks for accreditation and what makes, or rather guides, successful museums and efficient museums across the broad spectrums of what that word means as an umbrella term. And really he dives into the core of it, the governance between the three stakeholders involved in Mound House: Town Council, the Advisory Board, and the Friends of Mound House. He notes there's no clear lines of roles or responsibilities between the three stakeholders. And he did point out some concerns and challenges in regards to some better ways we could work more efficiently in terms of accomplishing our goals and moving forward with the Mound House, and making sure we're all working in the lanes that are best suited for that stakeholder group, to make sure we're not stepping on any toes, or making sure that everyone's there linking hands and that we're not missing any links in the chain of really moving forward.
You know, and I remember the discussion on this one with, I think it was with him, was that we kind of went through the progression of the Mound House and how when we first started, you know, the town didn't have a whole lot of money, so, or oversight to the Mound House, and that's really where the Friends came from. But as we've evolved, you know, the roles are gonna evolve as we've gotten, you know, we get so much money from the town as far as, you know, the general fund, and, you know, we're in a better position that way, and, you know, so we did go over the progression of, you know, at first the Friends were the part,
Right.
you know, and I wasn't around back then, but that's what I hear from you all, and it's just evolved, now that we're a little bit more stable and, you know, a place where we can go back to the way it's supposed to be.
Well, I think we have at least 2 or maybe 3 original
Yeah,
on this committee,
Two.
so
Yeah.
you can
On-
fill in
on-
the blanks,
Are you talking about Friends or CELCAB?
friends.
Friends, okay.
Mhm.
Well, and
What
it-
was the date that?
And
we-
the town incorporation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right with that, yeah.
but I just wanna, cause we know that the Friends did a lot of the heavy work right away, I mean.
I don't think that there was an organization though.
No, the
It
Friends
was
didn't.
very loose.
Really?
people.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
it
yeah,
was at
I'm learning
first.
as I go too.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
Yeah,
But I did wanna
first.
give the Friends a lot of credit to start that
yeah.
process.
So it was the group of people that then became formally known as the Friends
Yes.
that
Right.
pulled the whole thing together and
Yeah,
made
yeah.
it happen.
That's more what it is.
And so that began back in 96, or 95, 96. And then when the town bought the property in 2000, then the Friends still had their, I mean, they basically were
Informal.
pushing it forward.
Yeah, yeah,
And then Bill Grace had the wisdom to recognize we needed to be a legal entity, so
Yeah.
that wasn't until 2005.
yeah.
But it's the same people, just
Yeah.
and we're not, now we're 501c3.
Yeah,
And
and I think that's where the lines got blurred.
Yeah,
as
Yeah.
far
he,
as-
he does point out that having the same people as the Friends and as CELCAB does cause confusion amongst staff in terms of operations.
And-
From his perspective,
And we all
And we-
recognize that.
And-
And he recognizes.
Yeah.
And
that.
that's,
More than
and it
others.
is
But they
an old
remain the doers,
conversation.
they show up at everything, I mean, it's just a
But
natural.
there are certain,
we don't need to get into, I mean, that part now,
What?
but there are laws that go against,
Yeah, I'm
you
not
know,
saying
the-
it was right, I'm just talking about how it happened.
oh, I understand that, and we're
Yeah.
having the same problem with Fort Cabin, trying to get people to join the Friends.
So here, on page 13, there must be people in the local area, not just on Estero Island, that are history lovers. I'm confident that they would jump at the chance to be part of these groups. But they can't, because the council said, you must be a resident of the island.
it's only
No,
preferential
only
treatment.
for LPA and,
Yeah, not. for
Yeah, I think that
Friends.
the
recently
other
was
committees
changed.
can,
I
if
mean,
they,
not
if
for
they
They
have,
CELCAB.
changed the rules.
so if we have
When
somebody
did
in
they
Fort
change?
Myers that has been in the museum business forever, we can have them on the committee,
Yeah,
cause
Yeah.
they have
On
knowledge.
CELCAB.
Change that.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that had
Yeah,
changed.
LPA and, is there one more, Jim?
The
The
audit-
audit
the
committee
audit
are the only
committee.
ones that have to live on.
And that's
Yeah.
because they're statutory committees
that makes
designated
sense.
by
That
the
makes
state,
sense
yeah.
to me.
They change
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, if we have somebody with expert knowledge and we
Yeah,
want on
and-
the committee,
And on the original CELCAB, there were professors from Florida Gulf Coast University that served on the advisory board. That's where Corbett came from.
yeah, and right now for VORCAB, we have, for the Friends that have, they're on our list, we have 2 people
This Streeter guy.
that live in, not, Indiana, one person that lives in Indiana, lives here just very part-time,
Yeah.
so they can be for anywhere.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there were other applicants for CELCAB appointment. And
2 other ones.
yeah, and there are a few other people who are residents who I've been in conversations with one, trying to recruit one to convince him to join CELCAB. So he's very excited. He just hasn't been able to get back on the island, but his condo's coming back on in the
Okay.
fall, so he hopes to move back in the fall. Not in terms of residency issue, just in a logistical issue of being here at the meetings. So hopefully we'll have more of that, especially as the island comes back and a lot of the homes, people buy homes that are for sale and the condos reopen and everything. And then also, like, I think
Oh, that's very
on
good.
Murph, there's a member who comes from Concordia.
Concordia, yeah.
Yeah,
Ranger
Yeah.
Rock, Ranger Rock.
there was
So-
a woman that came last night who drove from Babcock Ranch
Mhm.
to come to that lecture last night.
Hmm.
I was stunned. I mean, that's like a good hour and 20 minutes away.
yeah.
So for her to drive out here
Do
to
you have any,
teach,
sorry,
Yeah.
I know we're, any conversations of how she heard about it?
You know, I didn't ask her about
Okay.
that, I should have.
Was it
She's-
one of
she's
their
a what?
outreach, was it?
She's a member.
Oh, okay.
So she was looking for kayak places. This
Yeah.
was a couple years ago, and she
Okay.
became a member through
Oh,
kayaking.
good.
And she'll visit sometimes.
Yeah,
She's
it's
very
wonderful.
passionate. She's
Really nice
really
to
I'm
see
just
that.
kind of a data person, and I like where'd they learn from?
Yeah.
An outreach that they did, or was it through a website, or was it?
All of that does help. So I think we've had this conversation many times, and I know Friends probably has had this conversation many times. But while we have a lot of thoughts about how to clarify the role of CELCAB versus Friends, I think one of the issues is how these CELCAB members are appointed. I mean, obviously, someone from Fort Myers now can, put in for a possible seat for CELCAB. So there could be several people waiting in the wings. Perhaps all of us could go out and see if there would be somebody else that would also like to serve on CELCAB. So that when an opening becomes available, that those people are in the wings ready to serve. But the important thing, though, for council to recognize that they cannot appoint someone who is a current Friends board member. And that would be kind of the way that could be more equitable, so that if a person who wants to serve on the CELCAB board is already a member of the Friends board, that they wouldn't be eligible to be a member. So
Well,
it would be the division of
Yeah,
responsibilities.
or they'd have to choose.
Or they would have to choose,
Which we're
exactly,
going
one
to.
or the other.
Yeah, and, just recently we came up, cause Anchorage is trying to run, they're having a thing for their boaters out at Bayside Veterans Park, and they wanted to fundraise, and there's somebody that's appointed by the town cannot fundraise on behalf of the town.
Right,
Of course.
right.
So we had to
Yeah,
tell them no, so that also is like, I hate having this conversation,
Yeah.
by the way, because I know you all are passionate, and I'd love for you to be part of it on both sides, it's just, I am
I would,
worried
It's
about
so
you
awkward.
guys and honestly litigation. I talked to the attorney the other day, cause this has been an issue in some of the other things, and she's like, I've seen people go to jail over sunshine law violation. I'm like,
Well, I think.
I don't wanna scare anyone, but I just wanna
no.
make it clear that
It's been-
it is kinda serious.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna flip my hat around for
Yeah,
a
I
minute
was
and
gonna
say
say,
that
explain what,
the Friends of the Mound House are in the process of having discussions. We had one meeting a few weeks ago, and we're having one next week. And we're formally separating things out, so this will cease to be a problem.
Oh, good,
Right.
oh, good, good.
there will be no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, there'll be no more
You
problem.
may lose your whole Friends board, though.
Well, I have a plan for
we'll
that
still-
too.
Well,
I have a
and that,
plan.
and that's the part I don't,
I know.
It has to be
It
gradual
hurts,
because there
I
has
know
to
what,
be
I know what
transition.
it should be done and what
It can't
I want to
happen overnight.
continue, but you can't have it
let me
both ways.
offer a
Yeah.
suggestion,
Well-
let me offer a procedural suggestion. If this is the will of the committee, we can grandfather existing members of CELCAB, and then as they leave CELCAB and who are also Friends, then of course, in other words, any new CELCAB member couldn't be a member of Friends, but we could certainly grandfather
You
those
can be a
existing.
member, just not on the board.
Just on the board,
Right.
Oh, yeah, be a member for
Yeah.
sure, they can be.
yeah.
So
You can't be a
That's what
voting
we'll
member.
be.
But I think, why would that not, I mean, if you have the opportunity to, look at several, several applications for a CELCAB seat, and one of them happens to be on the board of the Friends, would you then, as a council person, say, well, while they have, put in their name to be nominated, they're not eligible because they're a Friends board member? Would you not want to do that immediately?
Honestly, I differ a bit with counsel on this. I'm not an attorney. But if done appropriately, that synergy between, I love the fact that there's somebody from the Friends Board on CELCAB, because it
Right.
creates great communication and there's a synergy there. So it doesn't trouble me as much. I think we need to be sensitive to any sunshine violations. The town council, or the town attorney did work with Anchorage Advisory Committee to create a path for them to do some fundraising for the Boater Appreciation Day. So there is a path, with proper counsel. I think we can navigate this. I just don't want anyone to feel like they've got to leave CELCAB if they want to be active in the Friends or vice versa.
Yeah.
And we just have to be thoughtful about how
And
we do
I
it.
know the recommendation when the attorney, yeah, when we did a joint one was the only way that would work, and it still would work, to have both, they just need to be publicly
Publicly.
recognized, and they'd have to be videotaped. It'd have to be just like this meeting, it'd have to be, and so, she said there is a workaround, but those are the steps you'd need to take. And it would have to be open to the public, since there's 2 members of advisory board on here, on the Friends.
On the
So,
Friends.
I mean, she did
So
have a
it's
workaround.
possible.
Yeah, I think
We're
there,
for the friends, we're solving the problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're,
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's,
But this might not be, CELCAB might not be the only issue. I mean, it could happen at BORCAB, it could happen anywhere else. I mean, I just wanna make it clear, at BORCAB, we've already said you can't be,
right.
Well,
a
we
member
were
of
able to
both.
do that simply because we understood what the nature of the
Yeah.
problems are if we don't. So at the outset, we
But
said,
this-
you know, if
this
you
one
wanna
was
be a
a-
Friends of Bay Oaks, you know,
You
or
can't
on the
be.
board.
yeah.
So we were trying like crazy to get a Friends of Bay Oaks established, but we as BORCAB members couldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
We had to
And right now, I think
find
we have
4 outside people.
3 friends as of yesterday.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Oh, good, so
yeah.
we're
But
moving forward.
again, I don't wanna,
No,
part of my heart that
becomes-
you guys
it
love the
becomes a
Mountain House
legal
so
issue.
much, that you wanna be on both. It gets to me. I
Well,
hate
you-
having to separate it, but
But you can be a member of both. You can be a member of
Just not
Friends,
on a
like
board.
I am, and I'm on this board, but there's no conflict
Yeah,
there because
right.
I'm not a decision-making person.
but I
Yeah,
do
'cause-
appreciate, Ellen, that
Mhm.
you guys are
But we're working.
Are
on it.
going
Yeah,
that
that's
route,
great to
so.
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
yeah, cause
that's
the
good.
issue isn't being on the board of the Friends, it's that you're on CELCAB. So it's not a Friends issue as much as it is a member of being CELCAB, so it's,
Yeah.
if you're a member of CELCAB, you can't talk to another member of CELCAB, or a member of Anchorage can't talk to another member of Anchorage. So if one solution, it still wouldn't solve the issue, the potential conflicts of interest and confusion amongst which role you're speaking to, for staff and other agencies involved. But one person could be on the Friends board and be on CELCAB, but it's the CELCAB member, because they would be the only CELCAB member. If there are no other CELCAB members at those meetings, it's okay.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there could be
so
one.
there could be one person who's on the board of the Friends and on the board of
So-
CELCAB, again, still causing confusion and conflict of interest issues that he recommends we should speak to our attorneys about. But also, it's not that you're on the Friends, it's that CELCAB members are talking about agenda items like the underground, or
Right.
marketing, or staffing, or programs, or events outside of recorded meetings.
Yeah, and the
as
reason
as
is that,
CELCAB meetings.
that it's something you can't talk about, and you guys probably all know Sunshine Law, but, you know, you can't talk about things you may possibly be recommending or voting on.
To vote on, isn't it? The things
Right,
that
it's,
you're going
Yeah, but you
like-
guys-
like an underground is.
But I guess you guys, I suppose you guys
Right.
vote to recommend, that'd be your vote, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, if it's going to be a potential agenda item,
Right,
period,
right.
which could be subject to a vote, then,
Right.
you know, that's off the table for any
Right, for
Friends board
anybody,
member who
right.
also serves on CELCAB.
but just to note, I
That's
mean,
the issue.
on a personal note, I hate the way this goes,
Right.
Hey,
I
but
mean,
listen,
I know what
it's
needs
the
to be done.
reality.
as far as governance, but
Now, we're gonna
I
try
feel
and.
terrible because people have fought on both committees for the same reason, and now we're,
Mhm.
so.
So you were
Well,
working on it.
We
Do
are
you have a
working,
solution?
to be determined, I mean, to be we're meeting next week,
Oh,
so I don't
okay.
wanna speak prematurely.
Oh,
And-
okay.
We-
And you know, we could do some, and just to, if, as discussion goes, you know, have somebody here and be almost a liaison or give a report, you know, as they do at council when we come up and do it, so.
That's what I used to do before I was on CELCAB.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
And technically,
Exactly.
Becky, you're the liaison between CELCAB and council. That was voted on in May
Oh.
2022.
Oh,
Ah,
okay.
Yeah,
all right.
because again, this is not the first time it's come up. I think I counted 12 different instances since 2006
Oh,
that this
absolutely.
same conversation has
Yeah.
happened.
Mhm.
But
It
nothing's
has
been done.
It's not,
Has been.
yeah, so now it's time.
But you know, I think when we established the town, that was something that we all were made so aware of, was the sunshine law.
Mhm.
And it isn't something I don't think any of us take lightly,
No, I'm
because
not saying
it
you do. I
was,
did- I
you know,
do.
just that it was drilled into our
Yeah,
heads,
yeah.
keep your mouth shut, you
Yeah.
know?
And he-
So,
I mean,
Yeah.
the attorney gave the circumstance.
Right.
You're in the corner talking to somebody, they don't know if you're talking about
Right.
the underground or
Exactly.
baking cookies.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And the peer,
It's a slippery one, I understand.
know.
yeah, and the peer reviewer does make that recommendation that we as staff and I guess the town at large have to do a better job in having more onboarding material for new CELCAB members. Just like we do volunteer trainings at Mount House, there should be CELCAB trainings. Just like staff goes to professional development,
It's true.
advisory board
I-
members should go to professional development as well to help, improve their skills and help,
On
if they
that-
wanna improve their
I'm
skills.
sorry, Mayor. On that note, we are coming up with a plan where right after, I guess, after someone's appointed or after the appointment session, we have a training with, like, we're gonna be coming with every CELCAB member, every board CAB member, every advisory board member. We're gonna have a sunshine law training and talk about, the
Yes,
charters
true.
of what your advisory board is. So it's not just a CELCAB thing, it's
No,
Mm-hmm.
It's
Straight across the board, it's
Yeah.
just good policy.
Yeah.
good policy,
Yeah.
correct?
So to that extent, I think the one issue that involved council was the issue of our sort of taking the responsibility of the town council with regard to the decisions and the recommendations that we make as CELCAB members to council. And, certainly in the last few years, they've been extraordinarily supportive and in fact deferring to us, saying we're the experts in the field, but perhaps I don't know if that's the consensus of the entire council. I know that is of yours, and we love that.
I want to comment on this one because even though, in fairness, the recommendations don't trouble me all that much, some of the rhetoric in this particular report under governance does trouble me, in the sense that, and again, I don't fault the author because he hasn't been through what we've been through the last 2.5 years.
Right.
But the this concept that it's somehow inappropriate for the town council at Fort Myers Beach to delegate authority to CELCAB, particularly given the unique nature of the membership of CELCAB and all of their various experience and all the things they bring to the table, seems to me a bit absurd in the sense that I'll use the example of the mayor of Fort Myers Beach. Under the town charter, the town mayor is supposed to the designation of being mayor is only supposed to run the meetings and function in a ceremonial role in town functions. That's it, hard stop, otherwise he's the same as every other town councilor. But this mayor, post Ian, appropriately so, has assumed almost the traditional role of mayor, out of necessity, given the post Ian dynamics that we've all faced. And I think this is reflected in what we're going through now, in the sense that the council is torn in so many different directions, and when you have a resource like this committee, we're crazy not to delegate and lean on this committee during this somewhat bizarro time. Nobody's ever challenged the mayor's, none of the councilors, the town attorney has never challenged the mayor in terms of assuming roles that are traditionally reserved for the town manager or traditionally reserved for a traditional mayor, because it's out of necessity and everybody understands and respects it. And I think that's what we're going through now. But having said that, having replaced Anita, if that's possible, as the liaison here 4 years ago, I saw the town council leaning heavily on CELCAB back then, just because, again, the quality of the makeup. And I see here that Joe, that he references that they shouldn't be involved in picking the color of the paint and this and that. Well, I don't see that happening, and it's not been my experience since being the liaison of the committee. So to empower this committee based upon their gifts and experiences, to me, seems like a really smart, practical managerial approach for the council, particularly in this post-Ian time. And I tried to convey that to the author when he was here, and in fairness, he's pulled in every direction and doesn't fully appreciate what we've all been through here. So again, the recommendations don't really address this critique, and I from his perspective, I get it, but from a practical perspective, I think it's very appropriate what we've done, and I just assume, and I think I speak for my colleagues, we would appreciate continuing to have that same deference, and at least until we get out of the post-Ian world, and quite honestly, having experienced being a liaison to this committee prior to Ian, I never saw any problems back then. It all worked really well. There was a synergy between the council and CELCAB, and I can't remember any dispute of any significant nature since I've been on the council, and that's 4.5 years, and I'm sure Anita would say probably the same thing, but
agree.
just a thought on some of the rhetoric. And again, I don't think it's mean-spirited or anything. I just think it's a little bit, for someone who hasn't been through what we've been through, I could certainly understand how they couldn't understand some of the dynamics here. So, but anyways, but the recommendations to me are pretty harmless, and so I don't think it's worth making a mountain out of a molehill. But I thought it was important to say that.
Well, I appreciate your words, Vice
I do
Mayor,
too.
as I know we all do here.
bet.
Thank you. And
Yes.
we appreciate that you are confident in our ability to deal with the issues and the agenda items and the recommendations, and that not only are we heard, but that the recommendations are followed and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're right, I mean, it is an exemplary situation on all levels. The cohesion that we've got between CELCAB and council, because of all the storms, I think we've had to really pull together. But I think on a more, I hate to use the word spiritual level, but that sense of coming together in both the council and CELCAB and Friends to come up collectively with ideas that work best for the Mount House and for the town solidifies our community. So I think that's a good thing that we are collaborative in nature, as we've been in the past.
I think that's well said, and I just don't recall it ever being an issue, even prior to Ian. And with the staff, now the staff may feel differently now, but I don't get a sense that there is any micromanaging that goes on is collaborative. It's usually the staff reaching out to this committee and saying, hey, what do you all think if we did this or that? And then there's feedback, and it's always very healthy and organic, and it seems to work well. And I just felt like it was a bit, again, unintentionally mischaracterized in this report. And I get it, because, he's not from here and wouldn't know. But if there are issues, I'm happy to address, or try to address them. But in his recommendations, he doesn't even really address any of that. But he does in the text of his report. So anyways, just as an old political scientist, I thought that was interesting.
Well, I too, as a
Yeah.
political science major, and my comment at the end of that section was tone deaf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of museum people come from not a municipality form of governance. They come from a board of directors and a staff, and then you have a Friends perhaps. So those are the three entities. In this case, there are 4 entities, 5 actually. Staff, council, Friends, and CELCAB.
Yeah.
That makes it very confusing. And so from his point of view, I could see where there was a lot of ambivalence as to who is the one in charge here. By charter, you guys are in charge. We only are here to advise and recommend.
That's fair point.
Yeah, and even and please correct me if I'm wrong, the early charter, or whatever it was, that the town was at some point gonna turn it over to a nonprofit,
To a foundation
to a
board.
foundation board, which,
Exactly.
I don't know if it's, cause I don't think municipalities run these kind of, usually run in a
Well,
town.
normally, and there are a number of them, but it's usually done as part of the funding mechanism. So for example, the Tampa Museum of Art is run by a board, as is the Edison Ford Foundation. The board, or the estates itself, they used to have a foundation, and that basically dissolved. But the idea that the town or the municipality would be partially responsible financially for operations and programs was really sort of handled by the board of directors, which is the 501c3. So there were 2 entities, public and 501c3. And that simplifies, so the Tampa Museum of Art is run that way. A lot of other museums are run that way now. So for example, the Sarasota Museum of Art is through the Ringling School of Art and Design, so they have a partnership. The Ringling Museum itself is under the guise of Florida State University. So there is always that partnership, but in our case, there instead of 3 entities, there are 5 entities. And I could see where somebody coming in from the outside would be very.
And I would just,
Speak a little closer to the mic.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
having
sorry.
trouble hearing you.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
I'm sorry.
I would also say
No, I
too,
gotta repeat
is
it.
that having just went on that diatribe that I did, I am open to other models. If, you know, I just don't see the town council as the best board of directors for the Mound House. They're pulled in too many different directions. They just don't have that subject matter expertise or that history.
But if
Yeah.
you read the, I mean, if you, use, I'm sure, going through the charter and how it's
Yeah.
supposed to work.
But
you
we-
know, and
But we have a charter review committee coming up, and maybe we think of a better model. I'm open to anything
but
different. I
think
just, yeah.
what he's saying is, the council has ultimate authority.
But he
The
intimates,
fiscal,
Yeah.
the fiscal
I get,
responsibility.
yeah.
Yeah,
fiscal
no,
responsibility. So
but
if
he,
you guys recommend to put in $20 million, it's not like the council would just automatically say yes.
no,
I
but,
mean, it's,
but, and that's fair, but his intimation is that somehow the town council should be getting more granular into the Mound House and getting more engaged in the day-to-day and meeting more with staff and more engaged, which isn't a bad thing in a perfect world, but they're, you know, they're torn in so many different directions, and we have this committee here that's not only well-suited for it, but has this amazing experience with the Mound House. So again, if we restructure it or create a foundation or, you know, something, a different type of
Body.
you know, body to manage the Mound House within the context of the Fort Myers Beach, I'm open to suggestions. I'm not trying to say this is the way it's gotta be, but the way it is, yeah, the way it is now, I just don't see the council as the ideal governance structure for the Mound House. This doesn't make sense to me.
I think they need, to me, in my opinion, they just need to be the ultimate stewards of town property in general.
Yes.
That's
you know,
true, yeah.
So,
Yeah, and
I don't think, and no offense, Jim, I don't think this is as big as issue as he put it in there than it is that we're making it.
But I think it's an opportunity
this
for
is
us
more
to,
observation.
yeah, it's also an opportunity for us to relook at our model. Maybe this isn't the best model. Maybe the town is, maybe this foundation comes to the town with a annual, budget request, and then we look at that budget request and that's it. But to envision the town council coming down and meeting quarterly with staff, and it just seems like, doesn't seem terribly practical. But there may be a better model, and I'm open to it. I'm not saying
Yeah,
that.
I was saying, I got called out on a number of things, and one of them too is needing to be there more often, and I know that, and, you know, but I think that's different than what we're talking about, but
Well, it is. Is it different though, Jeff? I mean, you're the public works director. I mean, this.
I'm a community services director, so
You're-
this falls
yeah.
under my realm.
No, I know it falls technically under your realm, but is that the best designation? I mean, should they have
mean,
more
the-
independence? And I don't know.
This is why
Yeah.
we have managers
Yeah.
in each one too, is,
Yeah.
I say, I can't be everywhere all
Yeah,
the
and
time.
I don't fault you for that, because I know you're where you're being pulled, just like the council is, and
Oh
you've
my
got a
gosh.
subject matter expert next to you that obviously you rightfully defer to. So I think it's all very appropriate. You know, that,
No, but I do know, I feel guilty not, you know, even if it's going over and seeing the kids at the library, I don't get there enough, and,
yeah.
you know,
Well, I think,
personal choice, I guess.
I think when your position was created, and I know that I've talked to Allison about this, that it was a financial decision that they made at the time to
Sure.
give her both, because it's really not the same portfolio. And she had recommended that they two be separated again.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, they combined two
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And-
Yes, so now you're
Which is fine,
everything.
but we did a different system, so,
Right.
I mean,
And Ian made things happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
right,
True,
and town manager's system is just a little different than we had before, which is great, cause he does kind of, you have the overarching top, and then you have competent managers at each one that really do manage it. But my job is to kind of run all of it, make sure the budgets are there, you know, approve, so, yeah, I mean,
I'm just thinking out loud.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, yeah.
This is
Yeah.
probably a bad time for this review, considering
There you go.
the distractions that everybody was under when he came.
Well,
Maybe,
that's
he
true.
did a lot
Yeah.
more policy review than I think.
He did, yeah. And one thing that he did, which, I mean, we've always been a very smooth operation. And we're a small town, everybody worked together, there was never, ever any consternation. And when he came and met with the Friends, he put all sorts of things on us that we didn't know that we were supposed to do. Like that we can't use the logo, we have to get permission to use the Mound House, we have to, you know, and there were a lot of things that he, you know, and when he said, you only fundraise, which is fine with us if we know where we stood. But we really
And I-
didn't.
And I think in a
And it
typical
became-
setting, and
It
to your
was just
point,
kind
Jim,
of like
this is,
slap in our face,
it's
you
not
know?
always a typical situation, but I think normally that would be the case. You know, if you had, you know, we had, I'll just go back to my Boys and Girls Club days, we weren't associated with the neighborhood association, but we allowed them to use our facility to have meetings. But it was more of an ask. Not, don't get me wrong, we're happy to have you there, but I think that's more of what he's maybe used to,
Mhm,
is outside
exactly.
entities, you know,
Doing their
asking,
own, right,
yeah.
and
I-
we've always been small and worked together, and it was kind of a shock, I think,
And why wouldn't you meet there kind of thing, like,
yeah.
And we actually have, we have documents that give us, that lay out what
Yeah.
our usages are, that were agreed, Bill Grace laid that out early on.
Yeah, your situation is a little different than any other advisory board.
Right,
I mean, basically you don't have to get any permits,
right.
which is unusual, very unusual, cause there's
For
no
the
reviews
friends,
on them.
yeah, for the friends,
But-
yeah,
Yeah, so,
Yeah, Allison did a
Yeah.
good job of setting us up for the future when she
yeah,
did that.
yeah, and so a lot of those, according to him,
it's not always
are
easy
not,
with fire.
not,
Yeah, I don't
for
know
us
that
to-
Allison was
So-
maybe as well directed in that area as Teresa was. Teresa certainly had a clear notion of what the division of what
Mhm.
the Friends did.
Mhm.
And I think, unfortunately, that was muddied.
yeah,
And,
yes.
and I think we need to go back to the way Teresa did it.
I mean,
It was
the
much
reason for a
cleaner.
permit is check mark everything off the list for safety. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying we do that, I'm not
Yeah.
recommending that right
Yeah.
now, I'm just saying that
Yeah,
it's easier on our part to plan as far as a municipality
yeah,
for a special event.
My thought on
Nothing
that was,
more.
we raised money and we have to pay to have a meeting there?
yeah. And
Why
we
would we do
were
that?
kind of bad mouthed, and it really.
That was my thought
hurt our-
about that. I mean, it just,
Yeah,
to be able to meet there or hold things
Was he
there.
saying that you have to rent the space?
no, we have
No,
to.
we
open
didn't.
it
If
up.
we
He just
didn't
said you
have
were-
the agreement and you're charging everybody else,
Well, we have discretion.
But we have an actual
we
agreement. to
have an
Oh, I
say-
know you
agreement.
do, but
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
either
No.
way, we'd have discretion. Like, we allowed other groups to use it for free. I mean, you guys
Sure,
are our
sure.
fundraising arm, so we wouldn't
but
say no to it.
we,
Yeah.
we come from a background that was not completely friendly to the Mound House or to CELCAB.
There was contentious, I wasn't here, but I've heard the stories about the
Yeah.
very contentious years of this town. And I think
Oh, I
that's
bet.
where the memories are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I've heard the stories.
there were a lot of conflicts between
Yeah.
Friends, CELCAB, and the town council at the establishment. During Teresa, there's conflicts there. After Teresa, Patty Evans, there was
Oh, that
difficulties
was- forget those.
in trying to understand again
She's a
the
singer?
clear
Sarah Evans.
Sarah
Yeah,
Evans, yeah.
And Reagan, we
Um,
did a guy,
and then it wasn't until 2015 that CELCAB voted in your minutes to basically give all the duties, roles, and responsibilities of running the Friends to Allison,
mm-hmm.
and to just basically informally combine the two groups in 2015. So if you know,
that was the first that was the first,
that was her first meeting, I think that was like 2015.
Patty Evans had no background
She
in
had no,
museums
she
and,
was-
I mean, she,
Oh, no.
that was,
that was from
Th-
that
Maybe
was
she
why
didn't last
CELCAB
long
was
either.
taking, was being so adamant about things as a group, because there was
no leadership,
There-
we had to do it.
no
Well-
leadership, and she had no expertise, no background, no history. She was a PE person, which is fine for
Physics.
ORCAB and, you know, for Bay Oak,
Mhm.
sorry about that.
She was thrown into it.
Yeah, and she was thrown into it, and I think she did her best. And then there was somebody who had,
Some guy, and then we had Regan.
I didn't
and-
remember a guy, but
I don't remember a
yeah.
guy.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong, someone said there was a guy for a short time.
The first director, Arden.
Oh,
yeah, there
Arden-
was
Arden
one, and then there
Regan.
was somebody,
Arden
and then there
Regan.
was,
Yeah,
and then there was
but
Teresa.
it was ridiculous, and
And then was it Reagan, and then
Reagan.
Patty Evans?
After Reagan, yeah, Patty, and then Reagan, and then Alice.
And
So
then
I think-
Allison,
I don't
so
go by those records at
having,
all.
so then we have, and then we have Adam, who, they have background. They know what they're doing, and so, you know, CELCAB had to step in.
That's a great point, and that was kind of my point when we didn't have anybody running when we first incorporated, and you guys all took over as the, you know, kind of the Friends too, that's just the transition that we've gotten to, and luckily now, lately, I guess lately being 10 years or whatever it is, we've had some good leadership
Yeah.
in here. So.
And going back to Jim's point, if you on the council had to run the Mound House, like this guy is saying, and had to run the Anchorage thing, and had to run, you know, what Murph does, and had to, why not get more people involved in the town and give the council advice, and you guys then take it or not?
Yeah.
It seems like it works
What they
well,
do.
and
It
it
does,
makes
yeah.
it possible for you to, you know, have a life outside.
And
Well,
it-
they have other things to do
Yeah.
besides our little committee.
Well, and the other, the dynamic that's somewhat interesting, just since I think it's a good discussion. I would say that CELCAB is unique in that, with maybe it's also true of Anchorage Advisory Committee, in that we're managing a physical asset.
Right.
Like, the Public Safety Committee doesn't have a physical asset it manages. Sometimes they struggle for agenda items to think about it. And the same would be true for Murph. Sometimes they're thinking of, but there's no physical asset that they're managing. So that's what makes me feel like this is more of a traditional governance board, because you actually have two physical assets to manage. And of course, the mooring field for the Anchorage Advisory Committee and the Uplands facility. So it is a little, even in the advisory committee world, there are different dynamics,
You're
yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think also the peer reviewer points out the key distinction between you're under, you know, the town charter and the ordinances, you're under, you know, the town charter and the ordinances, you're guided by best museum practices and the Flores Communities Trust Agreement. Those are your constitution. If you're you know, and you're the, you know, Congress, and the staff are the executive branch, you know, and, you know, so there's these check and balances. So he's calling for just, you know,
Yeah.
again, defining those roles and responsibilities, that trusting the staff, because we have a very qualified staff at the town, that we're able to accomplish the goals based on our training, as you pointed out, in our expertise. And then, you know, if we do something out of line or, you know, ludicrous, we install pickleball courts in the underground. I don't know.
You're in trouble.
You know, actually, I don't think pickleball would work. I think
Depends who you ask.
handball would work best. There's walls.
Oh, right.
Or squash. So that's when you step in and you advise town council, hey, you need to talk to the town manager so Jeff can.
Well, and
Get
I
at
think
it.
the beauty
But and I
of,
know that you know, we talked a lot about the strategic
Yeah,
plan today
that's-
too. And as long as our programming and values and whatever you call it aligns with our strategic plan, I
Thank
think
you.
that's what the staff
Mhm.
needs to
This
focus
is the
on.
guide.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
This is the guideline, and then they do the day-to-day based on the strategic plan.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's
So-
not that we don't like that program, change the program. It's, are you doing programs?
right.
Yes or no?
And that's
And does it
been-
meet the mission?
Yeah, and that is a collective
And then it's an hour meeting.
conversation that we have when we draw up this plan, to say, okay, this is what we all agree to, now you guys implement it.
Yeah, and it's not just the individual, because I think there's a lot, like in your discussion and review of the past directors, it seems not so focused on the position, but on the individual. And relationships change based on who is who's in the position more so than the position person.
Well, and to
Um,
be honest, there's not a director that doesn't come in with their own
Right.
philosophy about what they believe is the right thing to do. And to be honest, I think each of our directors and the current one brings a specific, unique set of skills and a vision that has made the Mound House become increasingly more successful.
Mhm.
You, Adam, bring this professional museum background to bear on where we need to go going forward. So I do think that, you know, with each director that we've had, that there has been a growth, and certainly not unilaterally, but in a particular area, and we just need to be mindful of that.
Well put.
So in other words, the staff can make all the changes they want and we don't have anything to say about it.
Well, this is.
I don't see it that way, yeah. I don't see it that way. I think it's, to me, it's always been a very healthy relationship where we've never had to delineate that, because there's been a mutual respect.
Right.
And a mutual consultation, where
Exactly.
I've never seen that line of demarcation have to be drawn.
Yeah,
And I,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, that's it, yeah, yeah.
I noted in here that the town of Fort Myers Beach charter specifically states that CELCAB board is just that, an advisory board, and advises but not run the Mound House. So
Right.
that's what the
very
charter
true.
says.
We do not manage, it's not our job,
No, but we oversee.
it's totally different.
It's all fungible a little bit. You just, common sense has to enter into it at some point, but.
And
yeah,
again, it's like,
right?
oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Reisner, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of it's difficult sometimes to find those lines of demarcation, and that's where that comity and mutual respect and civility has to kind of sort of win the day, and I think it has for the most part.
And Adam, when you made the comment about it's not our purview to say what the program is, you pick the programs. However, the programs must be within the realm of what the mission and the vision should be.
Yeah,
So if
exactly.
you wanted to run a
That's the
program,
check.
you're gonna teach math lessons, that doesn't,
Yeah.
that's not kind of where it's going.
Unless he teaches math. how to
Using
close
archaeology.
out. Or archaeology.
Did they
I mean,
use an
they're-
abacus? Right?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of creative ways, but it's not in regards of you editing the lesson plans that Franklin's writing, or what drinks are served at the volunteer appreciation. I mean, we're welcome to suggestions, but and advice.
No,
But
we're not to
we're not.
micromanage,
I
but,
know,
but
yeah.
to help
Yeah.
set a
That's what I'm getting
direction.
at, or
Yeah.
like, oh, the tour shouldn't be 30 minutes long; they should be 45 minutes long.
No,
Right.
nothing,
You
nothing
need to
like
do
that.
tours at 11. The price should be this, and we're welcome to the advice, but in terms of, not as like marching orders, but appreciate advice based on your own experience and wisdom. But in terms of you being the final authority of setting,
No.
and us just being the arm. I'm saying, like, again, the
No.
check and balance, that we're all working lockstep.
Mm-hmm.
We have our roles and responsibilities, and you have your responsibilities. And then that oversight is to ensure if we do, we don't follow a mission, we don't follow best practices, if we are violating the Florida Community Trust Agreement, that's where you as the board come in and
Say,
use
wait a
that
minute.
oversight
You
and
say,
say,
"Wait."
hold up.
And if there's something that you recommend, like
Mhm.
I don't wanna bring up the underground again, but I will. You recommended to council to vote to keep it, do everything we can to keep it open. Like that, those are appropriate things to definitely do.
Right.
And yeah, that's part of programming, but that's also part of structure, and so there's,
And the history
Yeah.
of the site in general.
And the uniqueness of
Well,
it.
And to
then-
be clear, if you think about what we are as an advisory group, obviously CELCAB, and even with Friends, in no way do we have a conversation, nor do we have the responsibility of handling the budget.
No, of
The
course not.
budget is the staff responsibility.
right.
They're the ones that need to know, well, gosh, I can't afford this, or I can afford this. So, that's never been a concern of ours. So we can't be in a position of saying, well, you're not successful or you are successful based on the decisions you've made. But that's not our job, that's the council's job.
yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm Joe Onsick over here at council meetings when we're like, just do whatever it takes. He's like, oh!
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, man, it's gonna kill everything.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take exception with one thing, in after two managers that had no concept of
Right. Can't
museum
even look at
or
that.
archaeology or history or anything, I think we
You're talking
strongly
town
advocated
manager.
for an experienced manager. And Alice, that
Yes.
was Allison, and
Right.
that made so much
What a
difference, and now we have
difference.
Adam, who really know how to
Yeah.
do things,
Professionalize it. Yeah.
yes, so, yeah.
But I would just say this to Adam, and I think you would agree with me, Adam, is that on the flip side is that as a museum manager who has to run the day-to-day operations, if you're thinking of ideas and thinking of changes, it would be short-sighted not to bounce them off this experienced crew here to get some feedback as to how you think that would be received, how historically that would mesh, it's a symbiotic relationship. I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
that's why I was really
Yeah.
excited to present that year-long program calendar to CELCAB for their
Yeah.
advice and
And
feedback.
that was good.
And that's why I do my staff reports
Yeah.
to make sure that we're.
But I think that
staying on
exchange
track.
is very
Yeah.
helpful, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, creativity is a deep well, but there is a limit sometimes. So I welcome the additional ideas.
We hear feedback all day, right, Jim? I mean,
Oh, yes. Sometimes very direct, yeah.
Sharon.
No, I just have a question. I mean, maybe we've been with the Mountain House too long, but, when I was in it the other day, and I was in the room where the chairs are, the old living room and stuff, Dan Hughes had given $10,000 as a donation to furnish that room. And there was a plaque up there.
It's
The plaque
gone.
is gone. Is that a new rule?
We did discuss that,
So we'd like to know what we can do and
Yeah,
what we
we-
can't.
We just talked about it on this Wednesday at our meeting, and part of it is the way we accept donations. The way it sits, it would, and I know it gets really technical, and I apologize, but we don't have a naming rights kind of thing, and the plaque was so that it was a naming right. So we're gonna figure something else to recognize him, and we don't wanna not recognize
Yeah,
him,
cause I
but.
mean, the
But
fa-
it was
the
not,
fa-
it
but
was
the-
never done appropriately, that was the
Exactly.
bottom line,
Correct.
that was
So-
unfortunate.
And the
It was-
does the family know that the plaque is down? Have you informed them?
No,
It's just
again,
going to
because
be
there was no
relocated.
documentation on naming rights, the donation, and.
It was
and we just
almost
talked about it.
accidental, as
Yeah.
I recall. I mean, I wasn't there when it happened, but the stories I've heard, it was completely, it was not a CELCAB decision, I
The-
don't
No,
think.
no,
The
it
the
wasn't.
plaque?
No, I think
No.
that
Yes,
was.
I- I've
Friends.
heard the same
That was-
story.
It was
It-
Friends.
Right.
So the Friends, so.
It was one friend.
Technically, the Friends of Mount House donated the room.
Did they?
So the money may have come from Dan Hughes to the Friends, but in
Right.
terms of the deed of gift from that, for all those items the town accepted as the legal custody, the gift is not from Dan Hughes or his family. It was from the Friends, and then the plaque itself from the stories. I think we're on the same page with Becky. It kind of just got put up at a party.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't that happen
So
with-
I was trying to make sure the town was in legal compliance because
I
there's
have
not
heard
currently any
he
policies.
didn't
Yeah.
really like it, but
Yeah,
he couldn't say anything
that's
on account of who
that's-
put it
yeah.
up,
sticky wages.
who we all know and love.
And I think that happened,
But
what, was it, were you in a magazine
I
or
don't
something that
remember
got
who
framed and we
that
ended up
is.
getting it? Was that you?
She
that was
bought
another
it
issue.
and she put it
Yeah.
up.
And we
So
couldn't,
you just,
because it was a museum, we couldn't put this recognition about it in the museum. It had to go in the office, so
Yeah.
there's a bunch of,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
so,
and as far as naming rights, you know, it's something that
and
that we need to know.
Yeah, and that-
Because there's
Yeah,
a few
you
people we
bet.
need to
So,
recognize.
so in terms of
and-
like this, I think this is a great example and segue based on the
Yeah.
earlier conversation. The management was, oh, this might be putting the town in trouble. This goes against the town's policy against naming rights or lack thereof. So I
knew
have
that
to
was
step in
naming
to
rights.
kind of take it down until there is an established policy drafted or accepted or approved, maybe written by staff and then approved by CELCAB, who recommends council to vote on a naming policy for Mount
Yep.
House, and then it's all set. And then in terms of like ethics, like it's usually not good at, like it gets a little sticky when you start publicizing donations publicly.
Yeah.
I mean, Barbara, you probably experienced with that with art museums. Donors sometimes don't want to be acknowledged, you know, assets. So it opens more. I know we've been
Yeah.
talking a lot about, you know, all the complexities and those laws we have to follow.
unless of course it's millions of
yeah.
dollars and they do want to be recognized.
Exactly.
There you go.
Well, that's a difference. So
On the
what do
other
we do?
hand,
or somebody
Yeah.
else tries to claim it and they want that recognition.
I know,
I
I
understand
know.
your point and why it happened, but I also think it would have been good to say, oh, by the way, because of this, and this, temporarily we've removed that plaque.
Right.
Communication.
It's just, it's
Like,
communicating,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Point well taken, for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
just,
that's true.
just communication.
There's a lot going on,
Yeah.
and it is in the first room of the museum. So I guess I assumed it was, since it's a public building. But yeah, I can definitely update you guys more regularly on those things like that.
Well, I think it would be appropriate to update the Hughes family.
Yes, because
I think that'd be the Friends, because the Friends are the linkage. The town had nothing to do with
Well,
the Hughes family.
we didn't take it down.
No, but you guys
You put it up. You
You put it up on public
I-
property.
but-
We'll figure that part out. It's
But
not-
you know, but it was also there for years
Yeah.
and years and
Years
years.
and years. I don't
And
know.
wasn't, and I don't know,
don't
naming
think I was
rights,
even a
I don't know
friend.
anything about naming rights.
Oh my gosh.
We don't have a
you
policy,
pay-
that's
You
why.
pay to play.
That I
No,
mean.
no, I understand
Yeah.
about that,
Yeah,
but the plaque was to say, all he did was donate the money so we could furnish this
Yeah,
room.
there is no naming
There's
rights
no-
associated
for
with
the
that
for the
plaque.
collections. So like if
All
you
the-
donate a piece of artwork.
No, but it's
and
not
this
the
was
Hughes, it's not the Hughes parlor. So he wasn't asking,
I mean,
It's the the furniture was donated by the Hughes family, or
yeah,
by
that-
technically the Friends. Again, there's the clear lack of roles and responsibilities has gotten us into this situation that we're discussing
I mean,
currently.
I could,
over
I could
CELCAB
see
Friends
that,
staff.
yeah, but,
Right.
So again, the donation, the money may have come from the Hughes family, but under
went
the
through
legal
the
document
Friends.
that the town has, the legal custody changed from the Friends to the town, and the furniture was purchased by an outside vendor.
Hired by the
I know who it was.
friends.
Yeah, exactly, and then the
Yeah.
Friends put up this
You
plaque.
bet.
Similar to, we don't recognize every single person that donates to the Friends, I mean,
Well, no.
So I think that's a
right.
Friends
That's
decision,
true.
since if he donated to the Friends, then the Friends have, I guess, the tax write-off would be given to him or his family. You know, if he took one, I don't know, but the town wouldn't be associated with like that gift because the gift wasn't from him. There's that connection. It changed hands to this legal entity that is the Friends, and then the Friends, as a legal entity, donated it to another legal entity. So I think the Friends.
That was
I think that's
part of my
Friends.
time. I have no, I don't have any documents
No,
on any
I
of
don't
this.
either.
I
was
I
part of
would-
the Friends.
That gets very
We need a
touchy.
policy, obviously. I would
Yeah.
Well, and
drop it,
here,
and maybe the plaque can go somewhere else that will make it legal or something. I don't know that we have to alert.
And then also
The
there
Hughes
was
family.
so many visitors were coming in thinking, so the Hughes family lived here.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I get,
So there was some confusion educationally as an exhibit, and then, I mean, this points out later to collections and exhibits that the flow of the room doesn't change, so if we do take that recommendation, and as Barb will say, even permanent exhibits typically only last 8 to 10 years.
that's true.
Just like we change our programming, we change our exhibits, so what happens when we do change the living room for another exhibit? Because nothing can stay static.
And of
Things
course, that
change.
involves budget and.
Exactly.
And exhibit design, and so.
so
that's
would
a
that idea
long
come
range-
before the CELCAB?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think they.
You kind
Yeah.
of did
they would put
already
it
because we
together.
took out, I guess, the exhibit upstairs and made it the collection room, or collection, office.
Mhm.
So in that circumstance, we did talk about
Well,
that.
in terms of what the exhibit will be, according to best practices, again, this is all based on best practices, the staff decision on what the exhibit is, the design of the exhibit, whether it's gonna be in-house, the contracting, the bidding process, that's all a staff decision. And then again, your role as an advisory board, based on the town charter and best museum practices, if we're gonna put an exhibit about McDonald's, you know, that doesn't meet the mission. Or if we're, you know, we're just actually gonna board up that room and people have to get the gift shop and then you have to go somewhere else.
Museum store.
That's the museum store.
Thanks.
uh,
Right, Karina?
Yes.
It's
So,
the museum store.
But I think
so,
how-
so it would come to CELCAB in the terms of oversight and correction, but not in terms of, is this an approval for the panels, which CELCAB helped tremendously during that absence after Teresa in helping the museum, but that's because there was no staff.
That, there was no director.
So
But-
for instance, when we do the strategic plan, it'll say rotate exhibits based on museum standards and recommendations. So that would be what you all would do. You'd put that in the strategic plan, and that's up to the staff then again.
If the staff's gonna do it all and mention it to us at the end,
Yeah.
and say, well, here's what we're gonna do, we're gonna take out that room or the Calusa room or the, you know, the early history room, and we're gonna do this.
I think this is
We
how,
don't need to be in on the strategic plan,
Right.
do we?
yeah, cause
You
you can
do.
set those goals.
That you just said it's the staff is gonna do this, and
It-
then not even
But
bring
if
it
it
and
says-
say, we're thinking about
But if
it.
it says we're gonna be rotating, one of our strategic
Which
plans,
this
because of museum
says.
practices, is that we're gonna rotate exhibits, right?
Okay.
Then that's the staff's job, is to take the strategic plan and, plan,
Implement it.
implement that either with programming or moving the exhibits in.
I guess we've had a much closer relationship in the past, and I'm having a little hard time.
And I was just gonna say that I'm
dropping
in
it.
charge of 2 advisory councils, and they're run much different on both. One, I
Yeah.
come in and we just kinda say what we're doing, we give the staff report,
Yeah.
this is going on, we're starting this new program, and it's more of an informational, this is the staff report, cause that's the staff's job, is to implement those programs and run the actual thing, so that's how VORCAB is run. And then this one is a little more hands-on,
Yeah,
so,
Very much so.
But do
Very
you
much so.
understand, in 2016, it does say a long-term goal is identify and employ rotating exhibits.
I got no
Yeah,
problem
We
with,
have no
but
problem
the
with
idea that,
It's
Yeah.
that they need to, we'd like to know what it is.
we'd like to have a little
That's
input.
all I'm saying.
Here's what I'm,
And
here's
we'll
what
bring
I'm
it-
Well, I think
thinking.
we've
We're not-
already had, I mean, I think when
Yeah.
they were talking about the collection changing.
That's
we-
the
we
only
did-
one.
You guys proposed that to us and we
Yes.
Yeah.
talked about it and
Yes,
voted
we
yes.
Twice.
I know you voted
Right.
against it.
Yeah, they
No,
still
I
have
know,
that.
I mean, but that's
But
allowed.
that's
You're
a
allowed.
committee, and you
Yeah.
just, and you
That's
sit back and
true.
go, yeah, okay,
Right.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Well, not I'm wrong, but I disagree.
But
But
unlike the plaques and what, there's still a lot of things that have not come before us.
Again, that's like he says, paint color, font size.
Yeah.
That's day-to-day operations.
and
I'm bringing
it
it to your
just-
attention
Yeah.
if it's when it's involved in policy. So it's like your Congress, you write the laws. We're the executive branch, the staff. We're implementing those laws.
Well, and
And I
it
think the
involves
It's not the
between-
budget too.
it's not the
right.
job of Congress to go and enforce their laws. They're written. There are different checks and balances.
And I think the difference between what I just said about BORCAB and CELCAB is, you guys have been in it, your heart is so into it. I mean, I'm not saying BORCAB isn't, but
No.
they know, like, the staff can do it. I just feel like there's not a lot of trust in what we're doing.
See, and I would say taking down a plaque that's been there since it was instituted is a
Okay.
policy. I
That's
think
fair.
you're absolutely
Yeah.
right about that,
Yeah.
but we
But we'd
need
like to
some
be
sort of,
informed.
It's
There's no
communication.
it's
Communication.
It's
I think we
communication.
don't have
I think we wanna be in the
So we
loop
should
when
have,
you're making
what we should have
decisions.
done was came in and
Said,
I
"Oh, by the
could have
way."
said, by the way, we took down the plaque.
For
Yes.
this
For this
reason.
and here's why.
Yes.
We have to
Yeah.
take,
But I don't think it should have
Yeah.
been, today I took down the plaque, I need to email CELCAB.
Oh, no, 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 no,
No,
no.
That wouldn't have
it-
been
it should have
necessary.
said it was
So-
And I-
coming up and what did
Could have
we-
been in a staff report.
Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah.
need to be an
Yeah.
agenda.
So,
You
I
know,
think
this
those are
is
the differences
FYI.
that we're seeing is,
Well, and
we
if
should
I,
be able to do
yeah.
things as a staff, where we're kinda getting feedback and pushback if we do them. And that's our role versus what a recommendation report.
Yeah,
It's a sticky one because,
Well, it's sticky. Here's the sticky part of the sticky wicket is that, Adam, through no fault of his own, didn't know Dan Hughes. And Dan Hughes, and probably doesn't realize what an institution Dan Hughes was on our island and what a leading figure he was. And everybody here knew Dan Hughes and admired him and looked up to him. So there's probably a little bit of a disconnect historically. So to me, it necessarily should, I think you're right, literally, in terms of procedures, but good communication would be, and again, this is, sometimes these things happen, because how are you supposed to know that Dan Hughes is, everybody knew and befriended him and still, thinks highly of him today? I mean, you can't know that. So, I mean, that was just a little bit of a breakdown. It's not a federal case, but I do think that's where the communication thing is, hey, there's this plaque up here. I don't know the history behind it, but, just, we're going to take it down because of X, Y, and Z, and we're going to try to revisit it, and that kind of communication. But, you're going to hit and miss some of those, but, I think there are the efforts there.
Yeah, and also, I mean, technically, the loop is also named after Dan Hughes.
Yes.
Yeah, now that was a result of the council.
We were all against that, just so
oh,
you
you all
know.
were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The mayor at the time
Okay.
pushed that pretty hard, and
Yeah.
of course, we all love Dan Hughes, so you hate to vote
Oh,
against
yeah,
that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we're against that.
Yeah.
And we're not tyrants or anything.
I'm not saying that.
I think just where it all came in was probably when we had that lapse and we had to do so much
Yeah,
of it.
Yes.
And, the signs, the
You
font.
did pick
all
up
And that
of
was
it,
when we
because-
were doing the fonts and the design
we
and,
had to do all that
the-
stuff, and
the-
now we don't, which is good.
yeah.
But it's an adjustment.
It's
Stuff
an
is
adjustment.
done, yeah, and then we don't
I-
know it, and then you feel like, they don't
I
need
agree,
us, they don't care.
I can attest, and I'll just give a personal story in a current, we haven't had a Bay Oaks manager in, some time now. And we got Neil on board, which is awesome, or Parks and Rec manager. And I'm sitting here still running around trying to do my checklist, I'm like, I could just have him do it. So I've been,
They
like,
delegate-
oh yeah, he can do
delegate,
this,
yeah.
he can do this.
Delegate.
Like, and
Yeah.
I just need to be able to, and I do, I try, it's only been 2 weeks, but I do trust him that he's getting stuff done, so it's kind of similar, I mean,
Yeah,
you guys were doing everything, right?
We
Now
were.
we have competent people that,
and anything that changed was brought
Right.
to CELCAB.
We were
brought to
meeting
CELCAB.
twice a month
Yeah.
for like a
Yeah.
couple of years.
Yeah,
yeah,
And that was after Teresa left or before Allison was hired,
Yeah.
and we were in the middle of designing exhibits, and then the exhibit designer went bankrupt.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
even imagine what kind of chaos we were facing. Remember that, Betty?
You bet. You bet.
So we're trying, it's kind of like being a helicopter parent. You know?
It is, we
That is
need
a
to
great-
keep,
actually,
And it's
that's
like,
a
that's
great
what we
idea.
Yeah,
have
that
to
is
do,
a good
and then all of a
example.
sudden we
Go.
realize, step back
Yeah.
a bit, step back, we've got qualified leaders.
Yeah, and this, he does also recommend, it'd be great, I'd love if, like, he recommends council, but also CELCAB to visit regularly
Right?
and meet with staff, not
And
just,
I did, I
yes.
came last night.
and,
Oh,
attend
he
our.
said me too, you can say it.
uh, there's a financial connection
I
there.
drive around a lot, I just don't always stop.
You
And
are
that would be-
perfect.
and that-
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, what can you ask for?
The
In a-
best
Yeah,
boss
that,
ever.
that would be good if we would meet and be
It
able
might-
to talk about some of these
It would
things.
Yeah.
probably have to
You
be
bet.
individually
Maybe
because the
during
Sunshine
No,
Law.
I'm not gonna go into that.
And not just meet with me, just come by, not in like a formal meeting, just swing by, drop in on a program. It is free for you guys, by the way, as members.
Go fishing if you want.
You go fishing, but drop in on a program, pop by for a visit, have coffee with Franklin and Ashley, learn about the education programs, the new
Yeah.
field trips. There's new things in the store. So there's a lot of things that are happening, and because, like the thing with the plaque, I think, I don't know what would be and what would not be a thing to notify you. Like, we trimmed this tree. We mowed the yard. We moved the
had to
kayak
pull it.
trailer.
I think
So-
we're talking about,
We're talking about
things that
that-
impact relationships with
With
no-
people.
notable local people,
Individuals,
families that were instrumental in a lot of
Was
things.
something that I think I can add perhaps for Adam and Jeff's benefit is that that parlor was furnished and Dan Hughes enabled an antique dealer to find precisely the pieces that were from a photo of the original Case house. And Mr. and Mrs. Case, in front of the fireplace. So it was a really big deal to honor the history of the house itself, in addition to the mound. So that's why I think there's a lot of sentiment attached to that. And they don't see it as another room in a house, but as, it's the welcoming parlor of the original family that actually built that part of the house.
And then on the flip side to that, and I hate to be devil's advocate, but I walk in and I have no idea, and I think, what is this?
Yes, of course, as I did
I
the
thought I was
first time
coming
I
in
saw
for
it.
for a tour of,
That was my
Yes,
same
historic
reaction.
house.
I had no idea until I read
and
the
like, why
history.
is this here? I was
And then
looking
it
for
starts to
something
come
else,
alive.
and
But there's
Okay.
signage there
Jeff?
that describes it all.
no, it
It's right
does. It
there.
does. But I walk into the gift. That was my first reaction. Was I walked through the museum store and then I hit a living room.
Well,
I
see,
don't know.
that's
I guess
what-
my perception was something else when I walked in.
that
That's
goes
why-
back to having
That's why-
volunteers
That's
docents.
why we had
Yes.
a docent.
Because I would
That's
always
right.
stand
And
right
people
there, and I
loved
would
it.
say, "Welcome to the Mount," and then sometimes
Yeah,
Karina
well,
would do it,
yeah.
and then
And I didn't have that experience when I walked in. So.
and,
see,
and then
if
we
one
would
of us
say,
would've
and this
been
is
there.
our period room, and
Then I
this is
would've
why
known,
it's the
yeah.
period room, and add that context, and
The
then allow
docents
them to
are
read it.
on.
And it said, if you would like to see the overview, follow me into the orientation room. And my
People loved
storyline was, we have a 3-minute video that's going to tell you 2,000 years of history.
Lovely.
Yeah. And
we
in my
would
experience with
explain that-
museums is up, when you take a tour, you just sit in the room right away. They give you the tour of the place, the visual.
Exactly,
Well, that was like secondary
Yeah.
on the list, so
So
it
you
just
had
wasn't
an
the way I was
outline.
used to flowing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's
see, we
why-
had- Yeah,
But
I'm sorry.
that parlor has been central to the whole entrance and the focus of the Mound House for, what,
right.
25 years? I don't know the exact age
Well,
of it,
since
but
we
it goes
opened
back
it
to the
up.
mission,
Goes
It-
back
the
when we
cultural and
opened
environmental history of Fort Myers Beach.
Well, and that's the cultural history from 1906.
19, yeah,
I mean,
but
we're first and foremost an archaeological museum.
we should,
We have a historic house as a resource as well. That's not secondary or anything like that. It's also equal. But in terms of so the decorative arts, which is what that room is, there's not a lot of interpretation of, because again, when we had volunteers who were coming regularly, it worked really well. However, that structure does not exist anymore.
Well, why can't it
Why
be
not?
be
Why can't we?
revitalized?
We can't get
Why not?
volunteers to come
well, you
volunteer.
told us we weren't needed.
That's not
You
true.
didn't want us.
That's not true.
Oh,
We have, we basically beg in our volunteer newsletters, in our constant
And
contact
that's a
mumbling.
newsletter. I like to hear things verbally.
I-
I mean, we all felt totally slapped in the face.
Right.
We were told docents were not needed to come by. I was welcome to come by and visit. Exact words.
The staff said when, in terms of scheduling volunteers, and again, this is another point of having volunteers on the advisory board and friends members being the same, that causes confusion for staff and puts me in a very difficult, awkward position.
How does it
Um,
cause confusion for staff?
Yes.
Because I manage volunteers and then I come to a board that oversees me and my job performance. It's the same people.
Yeah, it's a little awkward, to be sure, I can see that.
So it makes me very uncomfortable.
So you're saying you don't want anyone
So-
that's in a
Not
leadership
true.
position
So
to
you
be a
don't want any
volunteer?
of us-
Everyone as a volunteer and a CELCAB, it gets a little sticky. Again, we get to those proportions, but going back to your original question,
So,
I would just like to, I think this is really important.
it is important.
It is important.
We said because the summer was very, very slow, we were getting 0 people days, we would have volunteers come, and, you know, a big part of volunteer retention is that engagement and that, trying to keep volunteers engaged with the history. And we were receiving a lot of complaints from volunteers on the lack of visitors and not having anything to do. So we said, you do not have to come anymore if you do not want to. We would love to have you come, but it is slow and you may find yourself bored. So right now there's just not a lot of activities going on. You're more than welcome to be here, but right now you might find it very different than how you responded. We're working on getting more people here, but in terms, especially when the underground was closed, there just wasn't a lot of demand for volunteers. So we tried to be a part of that communication and honesty. You know, we wouldn't want to lie to the volunteers and say, yes, we need you. We were thronged by people. And then for volunteers to show up, because we have had volunteers join who later quit because there's not enough things to do and there's not enough people and they get bored and they say, there's just no one here, I'm just sitting here, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, and they quit. And again, we're recovering after Hurricane Ian, and we don't have a lot of these policies and procedures set forth in terms of volunteer training, volunteer recruitment, volunteer time. So again, part of that communication, we were trying to be as honest as possible and saying, again, you're more than welcome, but to stop by and visit and also volunteer as well.
So
Perhaps that wasn't.
I'm hearing
It's-
some
it's-
dissensions,
it's
so
on-
I'm hearing.
It's on tape. You can go back and look at the meetings on what we said, what was said. And I said, then how can I help as a volunteer? And you said outreach,
Yes.
and that was it.
I would love for you, that's still volunteering. I'm
No.
You
confused.
want to speak to that, Alan?
we have been doing some outreach, and we would continue to do more outreach. We were at the library last week ago
Right?
Sunday.
You
Well,
will?
as
The
the
Friends.
friends,
As
the
the
friends
Friends.
volunteered,
No,
not
we-
the Mound House. Because we asked for outreach volunteers and we haven't had one outreach volunteer. And
This is the difference between a volunteer and the Friends, because we did that kind of outreach all the time prior to Ian. I remember going to, I can't even tell you which park, that's how I saw a lot of the parks in Florida. We all went, we had a table, and we did it. And we did it because we were volunteers and we were also friends. But it's the same people.
yes,
And you seem to have a hard
You don't
time with
like
that
that.
being the same people, but it's the people that care about it that are gonna be friends, that are gonna be the volunteers. And then when you tell them you
don't
need the
want 'em
volunteers,
anymore.
and then I see in the monthly newsletter, you're looking for volunteers and docents, and I'm thinking,
Yeah,
how come nobody sent an email and said, hey,
That-
we need you back?
that was the email you read.
No, it wasn't an email, that's a newsletter that was sent to the
Newsletter.
membership newsletter.
And the volunteer newsletter.
Is that
On January
communication?
11th.
Is that communication with your people?
Yeah. I mean, I would think just having a mailing list of volunteers is one way to have them feel like they're more than just reading a newsletter.
All
I
right,
guess I'm
I
confused.
think, and we could go on and on.
Yeah, this
and
is
I
not
have to
productive
say,
use of this time.
it's now 4:00, actually 3:59, and this meeting's been going on for 3 hours. We have hit a very touchy subject.
Yep, and it needs its
I
own meeting.
understand how emotional it is for all that are here today. I think that this is this is something that needed to be said, as long as this meeting's
Yes.
been, that said, this is all needed to be said, and I think what you come down to is that there's been a failure to communicate.
Right.
A big
Right?
one.
And let's just say on both parts, or maybe on all parts, we all need to do a better job of communicating. In the future, if things are, you know, a little touchy, let's have it out. Let's not divide. Let's not be polarized. As a community, we're too small for that.
Right.
So, in the guise of trying to get this meeting moving and ending, I would like to table the rest of the public trust portion of this, and then
Barbara,
for
can I
us
just
to
say
jump
one
right
thing?
back into the middle of the
There are
governance.
different forms of communication, we realize that, so we'll try
Right.
to use as many as we can. I mean, to us, that was communicating, that's how we do our Bay Oaks newsletter, that's how we do.
That's true.
So, it's just a matter of how you interpret, do I want a personal invite? Yeah, probably, but that's just, that we were getting the word out, it's like we were trying to hide anything.
Or you weren't trying to put anyone off,
Well, I don't know.
but I think that might have been the perception that
Yeah,
was.
okay, and we realize that, we get
Yeah.
that.
It's a style of so are you a newsletter is communicating to the masses? An email list
To
where
the
you-
members, yeah.
To the an email list to the people that have been volunteers saying, hey, we need you back.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
and that would
That,
be-
I mean, and
That's
that's the
been
way,
heard.
that's the way it
That
had always been done prior to the world falling
Okay.
apart.
So I just,
I.e. Ian.
quick question, do you have a plan in place for docents now?
Yeah, it's the same plan that we've been having and offering various forms of volunteer opportunities. Docents, which are the people that right now under the current system of the exhibits, stand in the living room and facilitate education,
Okay.
things like that. There are outreach volunteers, which if you look on the staff report, that's really the need of the museum and to best serve the museum from the staff's opinion. Kayak aid volunteers to assist staff in terms of loading, unloading, cleaning, and kind of being that sweeper for kayaking,
So-
as well as field trip volunteers.
So you need a lot of different kinds of volunteers.
Exactly,
absolutely.
and not some people do crossover. Some people just want to be kayaking. Some people just want to be
Okay.
docents,
Right.
which is totally okay. And
Okay.
that's the.
Cause someone was asking me the other day about, because they had heard that, you know, you weren't using docents now. And just was asking, so I can tell them, it's a couple people in the building.
Yeah, a lot of
So-
volunteers have come to us that they've heard from other volunteers
Yeah.
that volunteers aren't welcome,
Yeah,
and they come to us very heartbroken about it, and we have
Yeah.
to explain to them that that's not true.
okay,
But we were very
Good enough.
thankful that they come to us
Okay.
and ask us instead of listening to
good to know.
misinformation.
How many volunteers do you have right now?
That information I don't have, but it's not a lot. A
So
lot of
is it a dozen or is it less?
probably less than a dozen in terms of regular volunteers.
So I'd be happy to
So-
come back, cause I used to come,
Yeah.
I've done multiple days of the week.
Well, then we
Yeah,
can
and
make that happen.
we sent that email out January 22nd to Constant Contact, and you read it, as did Sherry and Becky.
So you sent out a direct email to former volunteers in constant contact?
Through Constant Contact using our volunteer newsletter, yes.
Oh, the
That's what,
newsletter.
but you're saying the newsletter, I'm saying
No,
that.
no.
And what
they're
I'm
two
saying is,
separate
and
things.
that's why I said there are
Again,
different
there's a failure
communication
to
styles,
communicate. Yeah,
we just need to find the right ones. I don't,
Right,
Because Ashley has been would send out emails, but people would say that they weren't getting them, so I told her to start using Constant Contact because some emails have changed,
What's
some people have
contact?
multiple emails.
well, and it also,
Again, we
constant
don't know.
contact winds up in my spam, so then I
Yes,
have to
me
go
too.
fish it out.
I don't get constant comment. I'm on medical leave anyway, that's my,
Yeah, and that's totally fine. There's no pressure.
all right, let's,
All right.
Yeah,
let's
we're
move
not
on.
some, this, we
In
have to
the-
have
in
another
the interest of
conversation.
time,
This is a different topic.
yes, and we're going to table the conversation until, next month. And we'll, continue with governance and address the issue of public trust and accountability. Does that work, Adam, for you?
If it works for the board.
Right, everyone
Mhm,
yes.
agreed about moving on? Okay, member items, we'll start with, Carolyn,
I have nothing,
okay?
thank you.
Becky?
Nothing right now. No, I'm good.
I would just like to add that if this has been contentious, but it's good contention because we're getting we're clearing the air.
Right.
And that's what needs clearing.
Right.
And we're
Exactly.
all gonna walk
Exactly.
away happy.
Exactly.
I can tell.
That's the point,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I can go in on Saturday and I can do my docent thing?
Please. We
I
would love
I
that.
can
Yes.
welcome people and go
Yes,
over the
please.
timelines.
There you
and-
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hot diggity.
and maybe I'll walk in and you can tell me what that
I I would
Winter
love
Meadows.
to.
Come on,
I would
come
love
on
to.
back.
One other thing, I will do it very quickly, and just something to think about, is kind of goes back, not to the plaque, but to recognizing people, and I know we need to do it outside the building. And we were almost thinking, I was talking with Carolyn, and about, like maybe a little reflection area, where we'd have a bench or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So,
When did you talk to Carolyn?
Hopefully at the meeting.
at Friends.
You guys are board members, for God's sakes. You
Well,
are
we're
now on record as,
We're-
You know where I
The
mentioned it to
Sunshine
her?
Law.
I
It
did, I
was-
mentioned it at the memorial.
That's exactly right, standing out beyond the,
But the issue is you're still board members, whether.
sorry, guys.
But anyway, we do have, and I know we can do something a little different, but we do have the memorial bench program that the town has, so.
And that's another thing
You know, if we
too,
wanna
that we thought,
pick some people, or,
yeah,
we can talk about that.
Yeah.
And we can, we don't necessarily need to do a green one, we can do a
Right.
more decorative one.
who do I need to call to get information about that,
Uh,
the bench program?
Deb Height,
Deb Hike?
Height, she's
Actually,
the
there,
community services,
Okay.
coordinator.
now, there used to be a CELCAB, or was it Friends had a
CELCAB.
program and an idea, that was a
We had a
CELCAB
bench,
thing.
and we actually were picking out benches.
We were picking out benches.
And I don't know if we came up with an amount, I think it was $5,000 per bench.
so that was,
It was, I think that
As
was
a-
donations.
I mean, it was, you had to pay to be able to have your name on the bench.
Wow.
It wasn't it wasn't a freebie.
No, on
Yeah.
these memorial benches too, you have to pay.
They're
You
the
have to
same thing.
pay.
Yeah, you pay.
Exactly.
Some nice
So
benches.
if it's 5,000, yeah. I mean, I think that was the price back then.
I think that was a Friends thing.
Yeah,
think it
because
was
I
a
don't think the town ones are that much money, are they?
No,
Well, the
I
town-
honestly, I don't
No.
think they're only
Could you
less
have
than
one?
500, I
we
think.
mentioned
was
it
gonna
at
say, I'm gonna
CELCAB,
have
it
my
was
own
something
bench.
to as a moneymaker.
We had
It was
somebody,
Don't quote me on that, but
we had somebody
thought it was
looking
all-
up
So they probably
prices and
were.
designs.
Mhm.
Oh, Annis was, Annis.
Annis, thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So it went back to the Friends.
Right.
Okay, you've done your member comment, Betty?
I think this meeting has been a real challenge, and we've had a lack of communication. So I think that it has really helped for us to be able to discuss these things. And I would assume that things that stay here, that are said here, stay here. I mean, this is
Except they're
what we're
recording.
able to do. And
Them of the
I
general
think the
public.
logical
Even the three
step
people that are
is,
watching.
what we wanna do is to have
I've
the
got that much
roundhouse
4 hours.
move forward. And all of this has been building up to that. And so I think it's been a healthy
Mhm.
meeting that we've had
Yep,
today.
Agree, I
And I
agree.
think that's
So-
part of why we're doing this museum assessment program, is to have these things come out and,
Yes,
and figure them out.
I think
throughout the
that's
process.
helpful. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Betty, well said, well
Yeah.
said. Okay, I think we can, since there's no one here, for public comment, we've got our next meeting scheduled for April 24th at 1 o'clock.
When is our
And-
next meeting?
April 24th, if I'm not mistaken.
At 1 o'clock again?
1 o'clock.
Mhm.
And I think we can use that as a standard, that seems to be agreeable to everyone. I know, Ellen, we moved it because
And I
of your
very appreciate it.
schedule.
Yes, thank you so much for
But
that.
if you can just put in your calendar that once a month, on the, what is that, third Thursday of every month at 1 o'clock, that would be
I
the
think
next
that's
meeting.
what the town has on their calendar too, I'll make sure.
Just double check, right? And at this
Oh.
point, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
All right, Becky, thank you.
Second,
Betty,
Second.
okay,
okay.
thank you.